if you have the right company.
Wake up to news as it happens, opinion and debate, and of course, a little bit of entertainment too.
Because when the kettle's on, we're on.
That's Breakfast on GB News, a show worth waking up for.
Every morning from 6 a.m.
Only on the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
We'll spread the news, you spread the word.
Britain was once the envy of the world. But look around. A nation that no longer knows what it is or where it's going. A country that's broken. How do we fix Britain? How do we bring it back? Friday night with Matt Goodwin at 8 p.m, only on GB News.
Decisions made in Washington aren't just shaping America, they're shaping Britain too. From migration to global security, from crime to health. Whatever happens in the White House today
will be felt in your town or city tomorrow.
That's why The Late Show is live from Washington, D.C.
Cutting through the politics to show you what it all means for Britain.
The Late Show live every night at midnight.
Only on GB News,
Britain's news channel.
No matter the state it's in, this is our nation. Join me, Jacob Rees-Mogg, for a genuine, honest discussion on where we have been, where we are going, and where we are with the people who set the direction. Tune in to State of the Nation every Monday to Thursday, 8 to 9 o'clock. Only on GB News.
Britain deserves a newsroom that puts the facts and your voice first.
Well, and that's what you get on GB News. Lively debates, lively conversation.
And we're not afraid to hold power to account.
And each other. So join me, Andrew Pierce.
And me, Miriam Cates, for Britain's Newsroom, weekdays from 9:30 on GB News.
A really important thing about GB News, and it's brought something completely different to the landscape.
The mainstream is all about keeping the status quo as it is, ticking along quite nicely. They don't want to ask difficult questions.
GB News exists because there is a desperate need for fearless journalism that puts the people first.
GB News came on the scene as a disruptor, and it has always been a disruptor ever since.
Journalism in this country has been a cosy world full of groupthink until now.
Well, the reality is that most British journalists are afraid. That's not GB News.
Journalism is journalism at the end of the day, and we're not here to serve any masters. Our masters are our audience.
We're here to talk about things in a way that have never been broadcast on British airways before.
Do not miss a moment on GB News.
The #1 news channel in the country.
Hello, good afternoon and welcome to GB News. We're live on TV, online and on digital radio. It's just gone 3 o'clock. I'm Nana Akua, and for the next few hours, me and my panel will be taking on some of the big topics hitting the headlines right now. This show is all about opinion. It's mine, it's theirs, and of course it is yours. We will be debating, discussing, and at times we will disagree, but no one will be cancelled. So joining me for the next few hours, political commentators Arman Bogle and also Andy Williams. Now, of course, today is a big show. We've got some breaking news today. Venezuela has declared a state of national emergency. That is after the US carried out large-scale strikes on the capital, Caracas. President Trump has held a brilliant operation to capture Venezuela's leader, Nicolas Maduro, and it is understood that he has been charged with narco-terrorism and is on his way to New York to face the wrath of American justice. We'll be hearing live from Donald Trump in around about an hour's time. That is in this show, live from Mar-a-Lago, so do not go anywhere. Stay tuned for all of that. Also, Sir Keir Starmer now, he has refused to condemn the US president over the strikes until he establishes the facts.
I want to speak to President Trump. I want to speak to allies. As I say, I can be absolutely clear that we were not involved in that. And as you know, I always say and believe we should all uphold international law.
Meanwhile, Shadow Foreign Secretary Priti Patel says that it is a very serious geopolitical moment, but nobody will shed tears for Maduro being removed. And Reform UK leader Nigel Farage said, though unorthodox, the attacks may be a good thing. Reaction has also been pouring in from around the world. Russia have condemned the attack as an act of armed aggression, which is slightly ironic, and he said that against Venezuela, saying they are deeply concerned. In Chile, Venezuelan expats gather to celebrate the downfall of leader Nicolas Maduro. Whilst Colombia has sent armed forces to the Venezuelan border amid concern over an influx of refugees. Now, we will be bringing you those latest updates on this breaking story as it develops. But before all of that, stay with me. Let's get your latest news headlines with Aaron Armstrong.
Thank you very much indeed, Nana. Let's get you up to date with all the latest headlines here in the GB newsroom at 3:02. We do start in Venezuela with that breaking news that is developing all the time. Venezuela's President Maduro and his wife Cilia Flores have been indicted in New York on drugs and weapons charges. They were captured by US forces and taken out of the country after large-scale strikes in and around the capital, Caracas. Well, Donald Trump has just been speaking. He's described it as a brilliant operation with no US casualties, adding that Washington will be strongly involved in Venezuela's oil industry moving forward. The US Attorney General Pam Bondi says Maduro will face the full wrath of American justice on American soil and American courts. The Trump administration has long accused President Maduro of heading a drug cartel and says it's cracking down on trafficking and terrorism. Plenty of reaction here in the UK. Shadow Foreign Secretary Priti Patel says the Conservatives have always condemned Maduro's brutal and repressive regime. And Sir Keir Starmer confirmed the UK was not involved.
I want to speak to President Trump. I want to speak to allies. As I say, I can be absolutely clear that we were not involved in that. And as you know, I always say and believe we should all uphold international law.
Well, the Venezuelan government says it rejects and denounces the US military aggression. These are live pictures from the capital, Caracas, where pro-Maduro supporters have been rallying against the US action. And nearby Colombia has sent armed forces to the border, the Venezuelan border, amid concern over an influx of refugees from the country. And expats in Chile, Venezuelan expats, they have taken to the streets to celebrate the downfall of Mr. Maduro. Now, Swiss prosecutors have placed 2 managers of the bar where a blaze killed at least 40 people in Switzerland on New Year's Day under criminal investigation. They're suspected of having committed homicide, arson and causing bodily harm by negligence. The blaze at the Constellation Bar in Crans, Montana injured a further 119 people. Officials say sparklers on champagne bottles are the likely cause. Meanwhile, the first 4 victims of the fire have been identified as 2 Swiss women aged 21 and 16 and 2 Swiss men aged 18 and 16. Their bodies have been returned to their families. Let's return to the UK. 2 people have died and a third is missing after trying to help a teenage girl who was washed away in the sea off the East Yorkshire coast. Police were called to Withersea yesterday afternoon, where a 67-year-old man was pulled unconscious from the water. He died at the scene. A second person's body was recovered on Friday evening, and those searches continue right now for a third person. Updates as soon as we get them here on GB News. Iranian security forces opened fire on protesters last night, despite Donald Trump's threat to intervene in the rapidly spreading social unrest. So far, at least 10 people have been killed. Dozens have been arrested following a severe economic crisis, which has sparked violent protests across the country. Well, the US president had warned Iran earlier in the day that Washington was locked and loaded and would rescue demonstrators if Tehran killed any more anti-regime protesters. But Iran's foreign ministry has condemned what they have described as intimidating remarks. They've threatened a swift, decisive and comprehensive response if the US does indeed intervene. And cold weather over the last few days, and that looks set to continue in the UK, certainly through the first week of the new year, with snow covering some parts of the country. The Met Office is predicting up to 40 centimetres in Scotland and a bit less than that in England and Wales, maybe 5 centimetres or so. Yellow warnings are in place across the southwest, northwest and the east coast of England, also Wales and Northern Ireland. That is lasting until Monday, with travel delays and cancellations, all the usual stuff expected on roads and rails. Those are your headlines. I'll be back with more in half an hour's time.
Thank you very much, Aaron. It's just coming up to 7 minutes after 3 o'clock. We have a big show for you today. We're going to kick off things with the seismic news from South America. Now, in the early hours of this morning, we learned that the United States had conducted large-scale strikes in Venezuela, and US Special Forces captured the Venezuelan President Nicolas Maduro. Now, the US Attorney General, Pam Bondi, has confirmed that Maduro and his wife have been indicted in the Southern District of New York. Donald Trump has also confirmed that Maduro is currently on his way to New York, and we will bring you all of that and his arrival when it happens. Now, we are also expecting the President, Donald Trump, to hold a news conference in the next hour. And again, we will bring you that live as soon as it is happening. Well, joining me now, national reporter Charlie Peters. So, Charlie, good to talk to you. Can you kind of explain to people what exactly has happened for those of us who don't fully understand the situation that has ensued?
Good afternoon, Anna. Yes, absolutely. Well, some remarkable information about the tactical decisions made behind this extraordinary operation that started in the dead of night off the coast of Venezuela, but ended before sunrise. The successful abduction of the president of Venezuela. And that source inside the CIA, speaking to US media, said that they were able to track Mr. Maduro's location in the days before his eventual capture in the early hours this morning by Delta Force with the support of the US intelligence agencies. Now, of course, he did have that $50 million bounty on his head, which will have aided the American spy agencies in their ability to recruit those covert human intelligence sources. And what you saw this morning, Nana, those extraordinary pictures coming out of Caracas, from Venezuela, of very targeted airstrikes from the US military. We presume drone strikes as well, based on the movement of some Reaper drones to Puerto Rico in the build-up to this offensive action. But those extraordinary images that we've been playing out today, showing the explosions in key military and logistical locations around Venezuela, not just in Caracas, but also the largest port, signal antennae, also significant air bases throughout the country. And what we're showing you now is some of the celebrations that we'll expect to see throughout the United States, but particularly in the southern US, because there are lots of Venezuelans in the United States who have been urging President Donald Trump to take this action for a long time. And many of the congressmen and politicians who represent seats with large Venezuelan American populations, they have been ecstatic in their celebration of this news. We're showing you pictures there from Mar-a-Lago, but also there have been sunrise parties in Miami and throughout many of those communities in the southern United States. We are waiting, as you say, to hear from Donald Trump at that press conference in Mar-a-Lago, and what he refers to as the Southern White House. But he has already provided some comments to Fox News, saying that Maduro wanted to negotiate in those final days before Delta Force captured him. But Trump said that he had rejected the offer, said, "I didn't want to negotiate. I said, nope, we got to do it." He also commented on the tactical level on the live video feeds that he received of that operation, saying that he'd never seen anything like it before when US forces had gotten through some steel doors in a matter of seconds. He has also, Donald Trump, sort of brushed off the expansive concerns that we've heard about the legality of this operation. He was asked in this Fox News interview about criticism that he had from Representative Jim Hines of Connecticut, who's the leading Democrat on the House Intelligence Committee. He said the Democrats were weak and stupid people. Well, Nana, that's going to have reverberations here in the United Kingdom as well, because we've heard from the Prime Minister, Sir Keir Starmer, saying that he was not aware of the strike or the abduction of a sitting presidential leader before it took place. But we did have that rather curious and mixed, very delicate statement, I think, from Nigel Farage, obviously, who is Donald Trump's closest ally in the United Kingdom in terms of the long-standing relationship they've both had, when Nigel Farage said that Donald Trump had broken international law, but it may be a good thing assigned towards Russia and China. I think, Nana, we can show you these pictures later in your program, but Chinese officials were in Venezuela meeting in Caracas with Nicolas Maduro just a matter of hours before this strike took place. The Chinese officials totally unaware of what was about to happen as they attempt to shore up that relationship. But Donald Trump did also have a message to the Chinese in his interview with Fox, saying that China, they'll get their oil as well. They have always framed their involvement in Venezuela as being about dealing with narco trafficking and narco terrorists, as they put it, in Venezuela. But so far, a lot of the conversation and a lot of the words coming out of Mar-a-Lago today are about oil. And considering Venezuela has the largest proven oil reserves in the world, that's really no surprise.
Well, it is also interesting that there's a lot of people who, some Venezuelans who say in America are championing this action of Donald Trump, but there are questions about a death toll. Because do we know if any Venezuelans have been killed in these attacks in the early hours at all?
Well, Nana, we heard many Venezuelan politicians making a series of claims about civilian infrastructure and injuries and deaths very soon after these strikes took place, when they were rushing onto state television, providing audio statements, providing some video statements as well. But we've yet to see full evidence for those claims, or indeed much to stand it up. It seems as though the strikes, while they carry an enormous amount of danger, considering the size of the weaponry deployed in Caracas, they were targeted on military installations. There will be questions asked about what sort of warnings were provided, how much time was given, and to what extent were the Venezuelan military told to stand down and not attempt to fight back against the might of the carrier strike group off the coast in Venezuela. But in terms of injuries to US forces, Donald Trump has suggested that perhaps some of those Delta Force operators and their enabling partners could have been injured when one of the helicopters was hit, but did confirm there were no serious casualties and of course, deaths in the US operation. And while there have been comments, Nana, about international law from House Intelligence Committee Democrats and indeed foreign leaders around the world, who've had condemnation from the French in just moments before I came up to speak to you as well, Donald Trump will be saying, actually, this is about might, not law, and this is about the political power and the military power I possess to achieve the ambitions I want in my sphere of influence. It seems as though international law is barely even a second consideration when it comes to this sort of operation and achieving the strategic goals that Washington wants in Venezuela after months of ramping up actions and also rhetoric and direct threats to Nicolas Maduro, who has, in recent days, Nana, been pleading for peace with the United States. He even provided to a Spanish journalist a cap that said, which was mimicking the Make America Great Again style, saying, yes, peace, no war. Well, he certainly did not get what he asked for there.
All right. Thank you very much, Charlie Peters. That is Charlie Peters, our national reporter. Well, joining me now is the former Attorney General, Sir Michael Ellis. Michael, welcome to the programme. Now, Michael, people keep banding on about this thing they're calling international law. International law. Is there really any such thing as international law?
Well, it's a good question, Nana, and the Americans don't think so. If such a thing does exist in their minds, it is dysfunctional, and I don't think there's much doubt that it is dysfunctional. We see, for example, the International Criminal Court and its conduct, as it has been overreaching, as the Americans see it, as far as Gaza is concerned and with Israel. The Americans take the view that this is a matter for their own self-defense. This has been discussed in the US over the course of several weeks now, because they've been engaging in military activity in the Caribbean Sea and elsewhere in the region near Venezuela, because they've been intercepting boats that they say have been carrying narcotic substances. It's clear that Mr. Trump doesn't accept that international law is a factor. I think he is more interested in the might is right principle, which is something, of course, that the world's empires over the centuries have often followed, including the British, Lord Palmerston's gunboat diplomacy comes to mind here. But what I think we're seeing here is some realpolitik. It's a reflection that what the Americans wish to achieve is to interdict the influence of Iran, of Russia, and of China in that region, in their own backyard, as they see it. The Americans have a policy, a doctrine, which they call the Monroe Doctrine, which has been in existence for just over 200 years, which effectively says that they wish to influence matters in South America and Central America in the same way that European powers 200 years ago were influencing things elsewhere around the world. So they say that might is right here, that self-defense is at issue for them. They lose thousands of American citizens every year to drugs, and they're concerned about Russian and Chinese and even Iranian influence. There's some suggestion that Iran has been using Venezuela in various capacities. So their view is that they're not in violation of American law, and that's what counts for them. And it really is a matter here of pragmatism, and they consider what there is of international law to be dysfunctional. This is a police action in their eyes. It's actually starting to look, I mean, there's a lot we don't know at the moment, Nana, and we'll learn more, I think, within the hour when the president has his press conference. But it's actually starting to me to look like more of an example of extraordinary rendition, what is called extraordinary rendition, which is something that American presidents since 9/11 have sometimes engaged in, including President Obama when he was in office, which is when the legal authorities of a state are usurped by the sheer use of force to take individuals away from a jurisdiction without bringing the law into it. So this is where lawyers aren't allowed to rule the roost, Nana, which is sometimes what happens in the UK and in the EU. It's might is right in this argument, and the Americans, it looks to me like this is an example of extraordinary rendition where they've taken the Venezuelan president out of his jurisdiction and bringing him into an American jurisdiction.
Yeah, and it does seem ironic that the critics of this are Russia, who accused America of an act of armed aggression, which is, again, absolute irony considering their work in Ukraine. Iran's supreme leader, Ayatollah al-Khamenei, again, a leader who right now Donald Trump is already assessing what to do about. What are your thoughts on those who have come up and sort of made their comments and where Donald Trump might go next, especially in terms with regard to Iran?
Well, that's a very good point, Nana, because you've seen, as you say, you've seen criticism from Russia and from China and from those sorts of actors who really are not in a position to take a high moral ground on these sorts of issues. The West have largely stayed quiet so far. They're trying to assess the situation because, of course, the fact is that Maduro is not someone who has had the support of the West. He has helped destroy his country. They have a poverty rate in Venezuela of 84% of their population is below the poverty line, despite the fact that they have amongst the biggest reserves, known reserves of oil in the world, even exceeding Arabia, and yet they have 270% inflation, the highest inflation rate in the world, and their currency is down 80%. So the country is a basket case. Maduro has effectively been, according to the Americans, running a drugs cartel, and they have decided to interdict this narco state, as they consider it. There's an example, actually, in history as well, recent history, that some of your viewers, Nana, may recall, and that is Manuel Noriega in Panama in 1989, where the Americans invaded Panama. They took hold of Noriega. He held himself up, if I remember correctly, in the Vatican embassy at the time. He was taken from there, he surrendered, and was sentenced to 17 years in an American prison. So there are examples of this sort of thing happening. I think the Americans are going to tell us in the next few hours that the military action that they've engaged in was just enough to secure Maduro from his compound and to take him into American custody. So this isn't regime change as the Americans see it. This is an arrest warrant that they have activated in a most unusual way.
And in their sights as the person who is going to potentially take over, it's a woman, isn't it? Who have they got in their sights to take over once they...
This is Maria Machado, and she, of course, your viewers may recall, she's the lady who won the Nobel Peace Prize only a few weeks ago. She's the Nobel laureate for 2025. As it happens, she wasn't allowed to contest the elections under Maduro. A chap called Edmundo Gonzalez actually won the election, but he was forced into exile. Maduro has been in charge there since 2013. He's deeply unpopular. Many Venezuelans have fled the country. And this is why you're starting to see celebrations in places like Spain and elsewhere in South America. Venezuelans will be celebrating the removal of Maduro, who has helped make his country into a complete economic basket case and a threat to the United States, which has resulted in the overnight action.
All right, Michael Ellis, thank you very much. That is a former Attorney General, Sir Michael Ellis. Good to talk to you. Thank you for that. Very informative indeed. 23 minutes after 3 o'clock. If you've just tuned in, welcome. I'm Nana Akua. This is GB News. Still to come. Donald Trump will be speaking live in just under an hour's time. We will bring you that live as the US captured the Venezuelan president. You won't want to miss any of that. This is GB News.
Bold. They are under no illusion.
Ray.
Are you a human trafficker?
Boundless. I've had enough of the nonsense, and I'm not afraid to say it.
Don't get us on the BBC.
Every weeknight, I tear through the headlines.
The smell of gasoline. Should we be worried about it?
From Westminster madness to cultural war chaos.
What I'm going to do now, they are throwing things out the car as we speak.
Get ready, Britain. Here we go. Patrick Christie tonight, weeknights from 9 p.m, only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
GB News Breakfast, every day from 6 a.m.
9:30.
It is indeed.
And as the new year approaches, we've got, for the very first time, our GB News charity calendar. It's on sale, and 100% of the price. I should point out, actually, the pictures were taken by you and voted for by you because we've got so many entries. So you've made this. 100% of the profits go to our 2025 charity partner, which is the London Taxi Drivers Charity for Children. And that actually is also proudly supported by Her Majesty the Queen. Really, really lovely.
But look, I'm just going to take... There's a... Oh, hold on a sec. There we go. Look, how lovely are those pictures?
It's really nice. It's what is most important is the fact that, as we say, 100% of the money is going to charity. If you pick one up at the GB News shop online, and the chairman of the Taxi Drivers Charity for London is Anthony Moore, and he's here. It's great to see you.
Good morning.
Tell us a little bit about what the charity does.
We do several events a year. We take kids to the seaside as a group of taxis. So this year we had 80 taxis transferring around about 200 children. We went to the zoo this year, and so we've done that as an event. Everybody gives up their time. The taxi drivers just give up their time, all just so that the kids can have a good time. We've got our Christmas party, or the Mad Hatters party. That's in January. And we've got now 700 and... We've had to limit the numbers this year. We've got 720 children coming at the moment.
Wow.
But they will be entertained by singers, dancers. We've got the King's Welsh Guards turning up to give them the dimensions of the dance floor. So they're coming to do, in their full regalia, they hang around, hats on children, photographs. So, you know, we do several things.
GB News, the People's Channel.
Hi, I'm Michelle Dewberry, and my show is your opportunity to cut through all the noise and dive in headfirst to some robust debates. Ideas clash.
Situation,
No,
Because the failure is...
You're deliberately avoiding my point. Nothing's held back.
And if you think this is the end of it, wait for more.
And we do not shy away from the difficult stuff. Sometimes I want to shake people and say, if only you understood. So join me on Jubes & Co. weeknights at 6 p.m, only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Good afternoon, 26 minutes after 3 o'clock. I'm Nana Akua. Welcome to GB News. We're live on TV, online and on digital radio. Breaking news, just to recap this developing story. The United States, has captured Venezuela's president, Nicolas Maduro, and his wife, and launched a large-scale strike against the country. Officials say that he has been indicted in New York on drugs and weapons charges and will face the full wrath of American justice on American soil in the American courts. President Donald Trump is expected to hold a press conference in just under an hour's time, so just after 4-ish. And, of course, I'll bring you all of that as it happens here on GB News. Well, joining me now to discuss political commentators Aman Bogle and Andy Williams. And I'm asking you, was Donald Trump right to intervene? I'll start with you, Andy Williams.
Well, I think if anyone has a black and white answer to that question for you right now, they haven't given it sufficient thought. This is really complicated. It's very nuanced. I think clearly Maduro ran an awful regime. He wasn't democratically elected in the way that most international observers understand. I think that 2024 presidential election clearly was rigged, or at least the results were inflated. All the polls suggest that he didn't actually win that election. So regime, bad. Definitely, categorically, this was not within international law. This was absolutely breaking international law. Venezuela is not a neighbour of the United States, or at least not an immediate neighbour. This was not self-defence in any meaningful...
Andy? What is it? Because it doesn't appear to have any real substance and you can actually ignore it. So where does it hail from? Where does it hail from? Where is the international court that specifically focuses on international law, if there is such a thing?
Well, ultimately, the United Nations can sanction whether or not a country can go and invade another nation-state. But the UN Security Council can...
They're not the arbiters of international law, are they? I mean, who is the arbiter?
Well, you've got this is where it's fragmented.
Exactly.
You've got The Hague, you've got the European Court of Human Rights, you've got it, so that is where the complication comes in. The other thing I'd say...
the European Court of Human Rights is not necessarily international law, is it? It's only European on European law, and it has no jurisdiction there, and they're not part of the convention.
No, but the United Nations does have jurisdiction here, because that says that there are only 3 reasons you can invade another nation-state. One is self-defence, one is if the UN Security Council passes a resolution, and you go back to the Iraq War, where they didn't pass a resolution and the United States and the UK went ahead anyway. And the third is if a state says effectively invites you to invade or intervene. But putting that to one side, I think the real question here, and the reason why I'm saying I don't know whether this was the right thing to do yet, is that the United States has an incredibly patchy record when it comes to international intervention. Look at Iraq. They removed Saddam, good, but then the state collapsed. There was sectarian violence, and we had the rise of ISIS. Afghanistan, removed the Taliban, good, spent $2 trillion, the Taliban are back.
Well, back in a week after they left as well.
Right, exactly. So it's not certain that this may produce a brilliant outcome, and if it does, we can all look back and say, good on you, Maduro is a bad guy. Venezuela, which was once, let's not forget, the richest country, the most prosperous, advanced nation in South America, and it could be again if they had a proper government and not a corrupt, hard left government. But we don't know yet what is coming next, and we can't guarantee that it will be a good outcome.
Well, I can answer the question very easily, what is right? And I can say yes. And I actually have thought it through, Andy, to be frank. And I hear people giving the examples of all the places where we've invaded or it's gone wrong. But if you think about the world as a whole, I would think that the Brits invaded how many countries, and all the others invaded many, many countries. And in all those instances, a lot of it actually went quite well. So I think if you looked on balance of all these invasions, then on balance, most of them have fared better. But Aman Bogle.
Well, look, when it's the Ayatollah and Cuba and Corbyn who are condemning this, President Trump is absolutely right to have gone through with this, to take this decisive action, to try and bring some sanity from the hands of the communists in Venezuela, which have ruled this place. This is such a prosperous place to begin with, and they've run it into the ground over the last 2 decades. Don't forget Maduro's godfather, the previous despot in Venezuela, Hugo Chavez. Who can forget the scenes of him and the assorted hard left of Western Europe. But more so than that, this is three very, very significant things. This is a very clear message from President Trump of strength, of peace through strength to the Chinese communists in Beijing, that, look, America is here to stay, and America has to defend not only its interests, but also the interests of freedom and democracy. And secondly, it frees up the Americans' hands a lot more in the Middle East in regards to Iran and in regards to the terrorism that emanates out of Tehran. And thirdly, it sends a really key message back home in the United States of America that, look, you know what, a part of putting America first, part of MAGA, is to make sure that President Trump breaks down those narco-terror networks.
But that's precisely not what MAGA was supposed to be about. MAGA was, if MAGA has...
Is MAGA not about putting America first?
Absolutely it is. So... But a central tenet of MAGA, of the MAGA doctrine, was we will not go and have these foreign adventures. In fact, Donald Trump...
It's not a foreign adventure.
Donald Trump said, we will stop racing to topple foreign regimes. He said, we will end conflicts, not start them. So he was very...
And President Trump's been hugely successful in doing that. He's brought peace to so many places around the world. And in fact, you know, he's kept the Pakistanis in check, certainly. He's trying to keep the Iranians now in check. He's been on the side of peace in the Israeli and Palestine situation. And bringing peace to America's streets, whether it's through deporting gangs, to deporting the real sort of leaders of the narco-terror groups, and bringing Maduro to justice is a big chunk of that.
So I don't disagree with anything you've just said. I'm making an argument against what Donald Trump himself said and what the entire MAGA movement said, what J.D. Vance has said for years. All of the key figures, and this is undeniable, and I can't believe anybody is standing up today and saying otherwise. It is undeniable. The key figures in the MAGA movement all said, we're going to stop intervening abroad, we don't want to spend our time and money there, we won't be doing it anymore. And they have, whether you agree or disagree, they have completely contradicted
This is President Trump putting America first. He's removing the drugs that have been infesting the United States streets for so long.
Well, thank you very much, Aman Bogle and Andy Williams. Will stay with us. Of course, we've got that huge news coming, that live press conference. Donald Trump will be speaking in about half an hour's time after the US captured Venezuela's president. Stay with us, but first, let's get an update with your latest news headlines and Aaron Armstrong.
Let's get you up to date with the headlines from the GB newsroom. Donald Trump says Venezuela's president Maduro and his wife Cilia Flores are on their way to New York to face criminal charges, drugs and weapons charges. They were captured by US forces and taken out of the country after large-scale strikes in and around the capital, Caracas, last night. The Venezuelan government says it rejects and denounces US military aggression and has declared a national emergency. These are live pictures from the capital, Caracas, where pro-Maduro supporters have been taking to the streets. 2 bar managers have been placed under criminal investigation following the deadly fire in Switzerland on New Year's Eve. Sparklers on champagne bottles have been identified as the likely cause of the blaze that killed 40 people. Iranian security forces opened fire on protesters last night, despite a threat from Donald Trump that the US would intervene in the rapidly spreading unrest. At least 10 people have been killed so far. And Britain looks set to shiver through the first week of the new year with snow covering parts of the country. There are yellow weather warnings in place until Monday. For the headlines, I'll have a full bulletin coming up at 4 o'clock.
Tune in to GB News Radio wherever you are. Online, on DAB Digital Radio, on TuneIn, on Radio Player, on Nation Player and on your smart speaker. Just say, play GB News.
Hello there, welcome to your latest GB News weather forecast. It remains very cold through the rest of the weekend and into the beginning of next week as well. Snow showers for some of us, icy stretches for most of us, and some winter sunshine as well. Cold northerly airflow, air coming all the way down from the Arctic, bringing a bitter feel to things for the rest of Saturday and into Sunday as well. Clearing skies this evening, temperatures widely falling below freezing. The blues on the map show that frost and ice developing very quickly, and as we head overnight, further wintry showers as sleet and snow showers feeding in from the north, largely around northern, western and eastern parts of the country. Central areas staying dry, but temperatures widely below freezing, -2 to -5 in the countryside, perhaps even down to -10 in the glens of Scotland. And those snow showers continue to feed in on quite a strong northerly wind, so they will move through quickly, but they will be heavy. Further accumulations possible. Met Office snow and ice warnings remain out right through the rest of the weekend. Wintry showers across Northern Ireland as well Sunday morning. Plenty of sunshine across central and eastern parts of England, but Wales down into the West Country, icy stretches and further sleet and snow showers in places. Very little changes through the day on Sunday. We remain cold with that northerly breeze. Plenty of winter sunshine, particularly across central and eastern parts of England, but Scotland, Northern Ireland, western parts of England and Wales will see further sleet and snow showers. The snow continuing to accumulate. Icy stretches in places and temperatures once again not rising much above freezing. For many of us, maybe 5 or 6 degrees across the far southwest by the afternoon. Into Sunday evening, further bands of sleet and snow pushing southwards, particularly across the west. Snow and ice accumulating in places, and it stays cold into Monday. Signs of something a little less cold though come the middle of the week. Temperatures just rising a little.
Mornings don't have to be tiresome, especially if you have the right company.
Wake up to news as it happens, opinion and debate, and of course, a little bit of entertainment too.
Because when the kettle's on, we're on.
That's Breakfast on GB News, a show worth waking up for.
Every morning from 6 a.m.
Only on the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
We'll spread the news, you spread the word.
From the school run to the home run, watch a new show for all of Britain.
He can say whatever he wants.
A straight-talking show where all voices are heard.
And, you know, when are we going to stop talking about smashing the gangs and actually do it?
With the stories that matter from every part of our country.
There's a bit of a crash landing there for your Chancellor.
Bold, fearless and standing up for you. That's me, Martin Daubney, 3 p.m. till 6 p.m, weekdays, here only on GB News. The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Welcome back. If you just tuned in, do not go anywhere. Coming up very shortly, a live press conference with Donald Trump. I'm Nana Akua. This is GB News. We're live on TV, online and on digital radio. And just to recap on that developing story today, the US have captured Venezuela's President Nicolas Maduro and his wife. They've launched a large-scale strike against the country. Well, joining me now, researcher at UCL's Institute of the Americas, Pablo Ochoa. I hope I said that correctly, Pablo. Pablo, talk to me about why exactly has Donald Trump gone and done this? Some people might be thinking, OK, I hear there was some drugs and things, but is there more to it than just really drug trafficking?
I think there are many more aspects to this, and I think that has to do with the interests of the United States in Venezuela, which are basically oil and minerals. But I think there's also a bigger picture here, which is how the United States under Trump is engaging with the world. And of course, with the region of Latin America, Donald Trump, if you start with this broader view, he sees the areas of the world, different areas of the world under different influences. And he sees Latin America and the Caribbean as the US backyard. You have also, this is not just something, obviously Trump represents one of the visions that exist within the American political spectrum as to how the United States have to engage. Some people are more cooperative, some people are more moderate. Obviously, especially under Marco Rubio now, the view in the American government is that the United States needs to be more assertive in the world and in Latin America, which it sees as its backyard. It is doing this to an extent that we hadn't seen in many years. Now, Trump had already talked about Venezuelan oil, in 2023 when he was giving a speech or during a rally in Florida. He said that during his first term, they were pressuring Venezuela with sanctions on its oil sector. Venezuela was on its knees, and it was about to give all the oil to the United States, but then they lost the election to Biden, and then they couldn't finish the job. So in this sense, this is an attempt to finish a job that wasn't finished in the first term by Donald Trump. Venezuela has the world's biggest proven oil reserves. Also, the area that's between Venezuela and Guyana, called the Essequibo area, has more oil reserves, and Venezuela also sits on large mineral deposits. So he's also looking at having access to this.
I see. So you suspect that's it? Because it was at that point when he was going to change the name of the Gulf of Mexico, is it, to the Gulf of America? And he's changed the name of that. So was this all part of the whole sort of overall picture, in your view?
Yes, you can remember one of the first things that Donald Trump did as well when he first came to power with regard to Latin America was to suggest that he might just take the Panama Canal back to US control if they continue to allow China to cross it. So again, it's that idea of Trump asserting the US hegemony in the area, and very aggressively.
You think that he's right in doing that, Pablo?
Well, I think that creates a very dangerous precedent, to be honest, because what if Zelensky disappears next? What if Putin now decides that he wants to just go and take Zelensky? Or if the Chinese, decide that they want to do something similar to Taiwan? So I think that if international relations have to happen within certain parameters, otherwise it's just the most powerful will win.
But a lot of people would argue, though, that, and I suspect that Putin would come and take Zelensky if he could take him. I don't doubt that he wouldn't give it a good go, but I think it's probably a bit too tricky for him right now. But some people might argue that actually, isn't it better to go and deal with the leader of that country and take the leader of the country rather than a full-scale war on the people within that country? Surely if you go directly to the people who are causing what you deem as chaos and affecting your country, that is the most efficient way of managing the situation.
Yes, except that we don't know if that's what's going to happen, because one of the first bits of information that we needed to find out was where are the rest of the regime in terms of the hierarchy, in terms of the line of command. And so after a few hours, the Chavista government has come out trying to display some strength. So we've seen the vice president giving public declarations, and the the defense minister, and now some key figures in the regime to say that, listen, we're still here. And so Chavismo is not just Maduro. Chavismo, certainly they have been preparing for an American aggression, an American invasion for about 20 years. Of course, this has been, so far, has been quite theoretical, because no one really could foresee, even 2 years ago, that the United States could actually effectively go there and just remove the president in such a bold and swift action. I think this level of efficiency and the level of technology that has been required for an action like this, I think this is what is surprising. And I think the Venezuelans have not prepared for that. But they have prepared for American invasion, American aggression, American sanctions, American hybrid warfare, and so on. So I think what they see now is that Trump is confirming their suspicions that the United States would try and take down the regime in Venezuela. That's what he's doing. But I think what they did overnight has been an incredible display of technology and intelligence, and really very efficient.
Yeah, an act of sheer precision, I would say. They've gone straight to the organ grinder, don't mess around with anybody else right there. Pablo Ochoa, thank you very much. He's a researcher at UCL's Institute of the Americas. Interesting. OK, coming up to 46 minutes after 3 o'clock. Stay with us because, of course, still to come, Donald Trump will be speaking live in around about 15, sort of 20 minutes' time. After capturing Venezuela's president, we will find out from him now what he plans to do with him, because he said that he will give us more detail there, and then you won't want to miss what he has to say. It's likely to be a full-on press conference with lots of people asking lots of different questions, and it'll be interesting to hear how he responds. First, let's get some of those European destination forecasts.
Ready to soak up that holiday sunshine?
Won't we need some cover?
No worries, all sorted.
All Clear Travel Insurance sponsors GB News Travel Destinations Forecast.
The weather across southern parts of Europe may not be as cold as it is here at the moment, but it is looking pretty unsettled. There's some heavy thundery rain pushing across parts of Madeira, the Canary Islands, and into southern parts of Portugal and Spain as well. Also further outbreaks of rain further east, heavy rain and hill snow spreading across many parts of the Balkans, causing some impacts here. More changeable weather to come as we go through the next few days and into the beginning of next week. I'll see you later.
All Clear Travel Insurance sponsors GB News Travel Destinations Forecast.
Westminster's full of talk, but out here, it's the real world.
Am I allowed to talk
No,
now?
that's it. This is where it matters, real people and real lives. That's what politics is all about.
In fact, has Trump made a good start? No.
Straight answers, no spin, and just a couple of pints.
How many fingers have I got up? About 10.
So join me for Lee Anderson's Real World every Friday at 7 p.m. only on GB News. The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Britain was once the envy of the world. But look around. A nation that no longer knows what it is or where it's going. A country that's broken. How do we fix Britain? How do we bring it back? Friday night with Matt Goodwin at 8 p.m. only on GB News.
Decisions made in Washington aren't just shaping America, they're shaping Britain too. From migration to global security, from crime to health. Whatever happens in the White House today
will be felt in your town or city tomorrow.
That's why The Late Show is live from Washington, D.C.
Cutting through the politics to show you what it all means for Britain.
The Late Show live every night at midnight.
Only on GB News,
Britain's news channel.
No matter the state it's in, this is our nation. Join me, Jacob Rees-Mogg, for a genuine, honest discussion on where we have been, where we are going, and where we are with the people who set the direction. Tune in to State of the Nation every Monday to Thursday, 8 to 9 o'clock. Only on GB News.
Exciting news. Every Friday, my Patrick Christie's Tonight Show is going to have a twist to it. We're welcoming some special guests. You. That's right, on Fridays I'm going to be doing my show in front of a live studio audience because this show is about you and what you have to say. It's going to be the same big debates, same big topics, same big opinions. But every Friday night at 9 p.m, you are invited to come on down to Patrick Christie's Tonight to be a part of the action. Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
At GB News, we love to hear from you, our loyal community. So drop us a line at gbnews.com/yoursay. There you can talk to each other and also to the presenters live on air. gbnews.com/yoursay, because GB News is your channel, Britain's news channel.
Hi, I'm Michelle Dewberry, and my show is your opportunity to cut through all the noise and dive in headfirst to some robust debates. Ideas clash.
Situation,
no,
isn't it?
No,
Because the failure is
you're deliberately avoiding my point. Nothing's held back,
And if you think this is the end of it, wait for more.
and we do not shy away from the difficult stuff. Sometimes I want to shake people and say, if only you understood. So join me on Jubes & Co weeknights at 6 p.m, only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Welcome back to GB News. A breaking news day. Stay with us about 15 minutes or so. Donald Trump will be speaking live about the big story, a developing story. The US have captured Venezuelan President Nicolas Maduro and his wife, and after America launched a large-scale strike against the country. Now, joining me, political commentators Aman Bogle and Andy Williams. We have been debating whether international law exists because there are people saying, oh, he's broken international law. I say it's a construct that people don't have to follow. There's no central body who controls it. You are telling me that it does exist.
Well, it does exist, but it breaks down if people ignore it or if countries ignore it.
So it doesn't exist.
Sorry?
So it doesn't exist.
But you could say that about the concept of time, about the concept of money. I mean, no, but you could. I know this sounds deeply philosophical.
You'll be in about 3 minutes. Does that exist?
I know this. I know this sounds deeply philosophical, but the whole point is that all laws, any societal rules-based order, only functions and exists because everybody agrees to adhere to it. That's why it's broken down. But there was a period of time when it was adhered to, and things did run really quite nicely and smoothly. No, it's not now.
There's no law without enforcement. So this made-up international law, who's there to enforce it? There is unless the United States of America goes around enforcing this said international law, it doesn't exist. It's as simple as that.
What they're doing is because they have such a commanding financial and military position, right? They can go around and do whatever they like because Europe can't get together and say, we're going to impose sanctions on you.
Basically, the law is what the US says it is. That's what you're literally saying.
The law is what the US says it is, what China says it is, what Russia says it is. The law is what the biggest, most bullying countries decide it is on any given day.
There's no such thing as international law. From what you just said...
Because it's broken down.
But there you go. So you admit, we just said there's no such thing.
I mean, this is just a philosophical debate.
It's not a philosophical debate. Yes, it is. Because the point is people are saying that Donald Trump has broken international law by doing it. Keir Starmer made some comments about international law but wasn't fully committed to it, of course. No surprises there. But the bottom line is that there's no such thing as it.
If you are a UN member state, right?
United Nations, yes.
Yeah. So that is all countries that are UN recognised, which is basically pretty much every country in the world, right? Apart from some disputed territories.
So that's not all of them then?
No, but which I'm talking about a handful of disputed territories, but almost certainly every major country in the world is a UN member state. You sign up to the United Nations and you therefore abide by international law. Or at least you should.
Unless you're one of the permanent five who has a veto on everything that comes up to the Security Council. And when that happens, no matter what international law there is, if one of them puts their hand up and says no, that law no longer exists.
Yeah, you can't.
I know. I agree. I think we're splitting hairs here. It's broken down. International law has broken down. The United States has made a decision, and I'm not even making a judgment on it. I'm just making the point. The United States has made a decision that international law is worth overriding in order to remove Maduro. And I think only history will tell whether that was the right decision.
Well, I guess you can't tell what's going to happen, so you do have to wait till after it's done to see what the...
That's a philosophical debate as well, isn't it, Nan?
No, that's a fact. It's the actual fact. There are 193 member states, actually. Most of the countries in the world are part of the United Nations, but that doesn't mean that they have to follow international law, and some of them just push past some of the laws that they don't like, and that's kind of how it is. But next, any moment, Donald Trump will be speaking live as the US captures Venezuela's president. Stay with us. You will not want to miss it. We'll bring it to you live on GB News. First, though, let's get you updated with the weather.
Expect warm spells with the odd rude interruption. Box Boiler sponsors the weather on GB News.
Hello there, welcome to your latest GB News weather forecast. It remains very cold through the rest of the weekend and into the beginning of next week as well. Snow showers for some of us, icy stretches for most of us, and some winter sunshine as well. Cold northerly airflow, air coming all the way down from the Arctic, bringing a bitter feel to things for the rest of Saturday and into Sunday as well. Clearing skies this evening, temperatures widely falling below freezing. The blues on the map show that frost and ice developing very quickly, and as we we head overnight, further wintry showers as sleet and snow showers feeding in from the north, largely around northern, western and eastern parts of the country. Central areas staying dry, but temperatures widely below freezing, -2 to -5 in the countryside, perhaps even down to -10 in the glens of Scotland. And those snow showers continue to feed in on quite a strong northerly wind, so they will move through quickly, but they will be heavy. Further accumulations possible. Met Office snow and ice warnings remain out right through the rest of the weekend. Wintry showers across Northern Ireland as well Sunday morning. Plenty of sunshine across central and eastern parts of England, but Wales down into the West Country, icy stretches and further sleet and snow showers in places. Very little changes through the day on Sunday. We remain cold with that northerly breeze. Plenty of winter sunshine, particularly across central and eastern parts of England, but Scotland, Northern Ireland, western parts of England and Wales will see further sleet and snow showers. The snow continuing to accumulate, icy stretches in places, and temperatures once again not rising much above freezing. For many of us, maybe 5 or 6 degrees across the far southwest by the afternoon. Into Sunday evening, further bands of sleet and snow pushing southwards, particularly across the west, snow and ice accumulating in places, and it stays cold into Monday. Signs of something a little less cold, though, come the middle of the week. Temperatures just rising a little.
Expect warm spells with the odd rude interruption. Box Boiler sponsors the weather on GB News.
Hello from the Aurora Collection Resort here in Lapland. We're on an amazing Arctic adventure to celebrate our greatest cash giveaway, a simply stunning £85,000.
And in 2026, we're giving you the chance to win it all.
For another chance to win £85,000 cash, text cash to 63225. One entry costs £2.50 plus one standard network rate message. Or text bonus to 63225. 5 entries cost £5 plus one standard network rate message. Go to gbnews.com/win. Entries start at £2.50. Call 0903 686 3232. Calls cost £2.50 plus your network access charge. Or post your name and number to GB18 PO Box 8690 Derby DE1 9TT. UK only. Entrance must be 18 or over. Lines close at 4 p.m. on the 30th of January. The winner may be contacted live on GB News, week commencing the 9th of February 2026. Please check the closing time if listening or watching on demand.
Mornings don't have to be tiresome, especially if you have the right company.
Wake up to news as it happens, opinion and debate, and of course, a little bit of entertainment too.
Because when the kettle's on, we're on.
That's Breakfast on GB News, a show worth waking up for.
Every morning from 6 a.m.
Only on the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
We'll spread the news, you spread the word.
From the school run to the home run, watch a new show for all of Britain.
He can say whatever he wants.
A straight talking show where all voices are heard.
And, you know, when are we going to stop talking about smashing the gangs and actually do it?
With the stories that matter from every part of our country.
There's a bit of a crash landing there for your Chancellor.
Bold, fearless and standing up for you. That's me, Martin Daubney, 3 p.m. till 6 p.m, weekdays, here only on GB News. The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Westminster's full of talk, but out here, it's the real world.
Am I allowed to talk now?
No, that's it. This is where it matters, real people and real lives. That's what politics is all about.
The fact that Trump made a good start, no.
Straight answers, no spin, and just a couple of pints.
How many fingers have I got up? About 10.
So join me for Lee Anderson's Real World every Friday at 7 p.m, only on GB News. The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
You want to know what's really going on in the corridors of power?
Labour don't know what to do with you half the time, and that makes you quite lethal in the chamber.
Get behind the headlines with Chopper's Political Podcast. Join me, Christopher Hope, as I sit down with the great and the good of British politics.
We'll see where this ruling takes us.
These are the stories shaping our nation. Chopper's Political Podcast, available now on all platforms. Listen in and stay ahead.
Hello, good afternoon and welcome to GB News. It is fast approaching 4 o'clock. We're live on TV, online and on digital radio. I'm Nana Akua. And for the next few hours, me and my panel will be taking on some of the big topics that are hitting the headlines right now. This show is all about opinion. It's mine, it's theirs, and of course it is yours. We'll be debating, discussing, and at times we will disagree, but as ever, no one will be cancelled. So joining me for the next 2 hours, political commentators Aman Bogle and also Andy Williams. Now, of course, today is a breaking news day because Venezuela has declared a state of national emergency after the US carried out large-scale strikes on the capital, Caracas. President Donald Trump has hailed a brilliant operation to capture Venezuela's leader, Nicolas Maduro. It is understood he has been charged with narco-terrorism. That is Nicolas Maduro, not Donald Trump, and is on his way to New York to face the wrath of American justice. Now, we will be hearing live from Donald Trump any moment now. Do not go anywhere. You'll be there in Mar-a-Lago. Stay tuned for that. In the meantime, Sir Keir Starmer has refused to condemn the US president over the strikes until he establishes the facts.
I want to speak to President Trump. I want to speak to allies. As I say, I can be absolutely clear that we were not involved in that. And as you know, I always say and believe we should all uphold international law.
Well, in the meantime, Shadow Foreign Secretary Priti Patel says it's a very serious geopolitical moment, but nobody will shed tears for Maduro being removed. And Reform UK's leader Nigel Farage said, though unorthodox, the attacks may be a good thing. Well, reaction has also been pouring in from all around the world. Russia have condemned the attack as an act of armed aggression against Venezuela, saying they are deeply concerned, whilst Colombia has sent armed forces to the Venezuelan border and concern over an influx of refugees. Well, we will bring you all of the updates on this breaking story as it develops. Stay with us. Remember, Donald Trump will be live in a matter of moments, but first, your latest news with Aaron Armstrong.
Thanks, Nan. A very good afternoon to you. 2 minutes past 4 in the GB newsroom. Our top story is about Venezuela. Donald Trump says its leader, Nicolas Maduro, and his wife, Cilia Flores, are heading to New York to face criminal drugs and weapons charges. They were captured by US forces and taken out of the country following large-scale strikes in and around the capital, Caracas. President Trump's described it as a brilliant operation with no US casualties, adding that Washington will be strongly involved in Venezuela's oil industry moving forward. US Attorney General Pam Bondi says Maduro will face the full wrath of American justice on American soil in American courts. Well, the Trump administration has accused President Maduro of heading a drug cartel and says it's cracking down on narco-trafficking and terrorism. Sir Keir Starmer, the Prime Minister, says he hasn't yet spoken to Mr Trump, but has confirmed the UK was not involved.
I want to speak to President Trump. I want to speak to allies. As I say, I can be absolutely clear that we were not involved in that. And as you know, I always say and believe we should all uphold international law.
Well, let's take you to some live pictures from around the region. This is from the capital, Caracas, where pro-Maduro supporters are rallying against the US action. Venezuela has declared a national emergency. It's denounced the extreme, serious military action by the US, and the government has urged citizens to rise up against the assault. It says Washington is risking plunging Latin America into chaos with an extremely serious act of aggression. Colombia's President Gustavo Petro has deployed armed forces to the border with Venezuela amid concern over an influx of refugees. And Venezuelan expats in Chile have been taking to the streets. This is from Santiago. They're celebrating the downfall of President Maduro. A mixed international reaction, though. Russia says the US actions are deeply concerning, and the EU has called for international law to be upheld. More on this as soon as we get it. President Trump, as we just mentioned, due to speak any minute. Swiss prosecutors have placed 2 managers of the bar where a blaze killed at least 40 people in Switzerland on New Year's Day under criminal investigation. They are suspected of having committed homicide, arson and causing bodily harm by negligence. The blaze at the Constellation Bar in Crans, Montana injured a further 119 people. Officials say sparklers on champagne bottles are the likely cause of the fire. And meanwhile, the first 4 victims have been identified: 2 Swiss women, aged 21 and 16, and 2 Swiss men, aged 18 and 16. Their bodies have been returned to their families, but investigations continue. Two people have died and a third's missing after it's understood they tried to help a teenage girl who was washed away in the sea off the east coast of Yorkshire. Police were called to Withernsea at 3:15 yesterday afternoon, where a 67-year-old man was pulled unconscious from the water. He died at the scene. A second person's body was recovered on Friday evening, and those searches are continuing today for that third missing person. Iranian security forces opened fire on protesters last night, despite a threat by Donald Trump to intervene in the rapidly spreading unrest. At least 10 people have been killed, dozens more have been arrested. Violent protests were sparked across the country as a result of the severe economic crisis. Well, the US president had earlier warned Iran that Washington was locked and loaded and would rescue demonstrators if Tehran killed any more anti-regime protesters. But Iran's foreign ministers condemned what they are calling intimidating remarks, and they've threatened a swift, decisive and comprehensive response if the US does intervene. And Britain looks set to shiver its way through the first week of the new year. That Arctic air is already here and snow is covering parts of the country. The Met Office is predicting up to 40 centimetres in Scotland and around 5 centimetres across England and Wales. Yellow warnings in place for most parts of the country. That's the southwest, northwest and east coast of England, also Northern Ireland and Wales until Monday. And of course, travel delays and disruption have been predicted. That's it for the moment. Now it is back to Nana.
Tune in to GB News Radio wherever you are. Online, on DAB digital radio, on TuneIn, on Radio Player, on Nation Player and on your smart speaker. Just say, play GB News.
Seven minutes after 4 o'clock, and at any moment now, Donald Trump will hold a press conference after capturing the Venezuelan president, Nicolas Maduro. The US president said the dictator and his wife had been detained in a brilliant operation, that is what he called it. Special forces stormed Maduro's highly guarded fortress and they captured the Venezuelan leader as he tried to flee to a safe room. The pictures you are seeing now, those look to me like live pictures. Well, I'm joined now by our national reporter, Charlie Peters. So, Charlie, in a matter of moments, Donald Trump will be telling us what do we expect to hear from Donald Trump? What is he likely to be saying?
Well, Nana, he's likely to answer those key questions about the justification for this operation and the approval and assurances and authorization he sought before conducting it. Because in comments already made to Fox News in the United States, he said that he would be expanding on that point at that press conference in the tea room of his Mar-a-Lago estate, due to start at any moment in the next hour. Now, we have also heard from the president about some of the tactical details about the operation. He's said that while some of those Delta Force soldiers were injured and a helicopter was hit pretty badly, all of the kit and equipment was returned safely, and the operation, he said, was launched in such a manner that they were able to get to Nicolas Maduro and his wife in what he described as a compound heavily fortified before the president was able to get into his secure zone, a sort of ring of steel within that estate. So other analysts and sources in US media are saying that those Delta Force operators, the very tip of the spear of the US military, the most special of special forces, grabbed the president and his wife while they were still in bed. Such was the swiftness of the operation. Although the president didn't comment on that particular level of detail, he did say that they were able to view the operation on video feeds in his Mar-a-Lago estate. Nicolas Maduro and his wife taken to a US warship off the coast as part of that US carrier strike group, where there are some 15,000 troops deployed in the Caribbean at the moment. And Anna, there have been warnings and indicators that this operation was due to occur for several months now. We have seen vast numbers of C-17 cargo planes flying from the United States down to its bases in Puerto Rico, including also the support for some drones, some of which were seen, photographed returning to Puerto Rico after those strikes in the early hours of Caracas this morning. An operation and a set of large-scale strikes started in the early hours and finished long before sunrise at around 6:30 a.m. this morning. Also commenting on the strike earlier, President Trump said that they'd been waiting to do it for about 4 days. So they were unable to do it due to the weather. There were too many clouds. And the US military intelligence and also its associated civilian intelligence agencies, their information collection is so unprecedented and so extraordinary that it's remarkable how important those weather details can be. But of course, considering there was going to be a low-flying helicopter approach to that location, we saw the Night Stalkers, as they are known, special aviation Chinook helicopters, carrying those Delta Force operators, and then we presume recovering Nicolas Maduro and his wife, but also the drones that would be required to launch strikes on an airbase, signal antenna, and also a port in the country. All of that would have required pristine conditions to launch the operation. And Nana, it also points to the remarkable information security that they've achieved. But we were saying this morning on GB News that it appeared almost certainly the case that Sir Keir Starmer was finding out about these strikes at around the same time as we were, as footage was rolling in on social media from local nationals in Venezuela filming this incident on their phones. So that is a remarkable detail to bring as part of this operation as well. Now, while we're waiting for the US president, we have heard from the Vice President, J.D. Vance, as you'd expect, justifying Maduro's capture amid a lot of condemnation from European states and others and concerns they have about international law. By contrast, Israel has supported the American action, pointing to the success of the operation. And Vance has said this, PSA, public service announcement for everyone saying this was illegal. Maduro has multiple indictments in the United States for narco-terrorism. You don't get to avoid justice for drug trafficking in the United States because you live in a palace in Caracas. Donald Trump also saying earlier, Nana, that they've had 300,000 deaths in the US due to drugs, very much laying the blame for this strike on narco trafficking, on the threat of drugs to the United States. We have seen them launch dozens of strikes since the start of September, and most recently on New Year's Eve, on small boats allegedly carrying narcotics towards the United States, which have taken about 115 casualties. They've been a source of great controversy due to some of the law of armed conflict concerns about those strikes, including concerns that they have struck they've done double tap strikes, as it were, on these boats, including when there are survivors in shipwrecks, which has raised concerns in the United States and beyond. But for those pointing to international law, I think the president will have a simple message that we're expected to hear shortly, that politics is about power, Nana, and it's about achieving the end state and the goals that you wish. And as we all know, warfare is politics by another means. If Maduro and his government and the cartels that he allegedly supports are a threat to the United States, that will be the top priority for the commander-in-chief as he sets out his ambition to achieve an end state where there is no more Nicolas Maduro and threats to his country. But now questions will also turn, Nana, to what comes next. What will happen inside Venezuela? Who will take command? What leadership can we expect? And I think it's there where there is going to be a lot more concern about who's available, who can step up. We've seen a raft of ministers come forward and give various statements online. And we've also heard from Maria Corina Machado, who is the opposition leader. She's posted a statement on social media calling for unity following the capture of Maduro. And Nana, well, much of our audience will never have heard of Machado before today. She has millions of followers on social media. This post on X barely an hour ago has already got 90,000 likes. And she said, given his refusal to accept a negotiated exit, the government of the United States has fulfilled its promise to enforce the law. We have struggled for years. We have given it our all, and it has been worth it. What had to happen is happening. But when asked earlier today, Nana, if Donald Trump was going to back Machado for the leadership, he declined to comment. We don't know at this stage how much thought has gone into what happens next. What we do know is that a lot of thought went into the military execution, which from a purely tactical and strategic standpoint was highly successful.
And you mentioned Maria Machado. Now, wasn't she the Nobel Peace Prize winner? Have I got that right? She was the Nobel Peace Prize winner, wasn't she? And that's the prize that Donald Trump didn't win.
That's right. Well, he did get his FIFA Peace Prize, didn't he? Although that may be a one-time experience. Although we did also hear from Machado saying that Edmundo Gonzalez, who the US has recognized as Venezuela's president-elect, of course, when Joe Biden was in power, the US administration slammed the last set of Venezuelan elections, which Gonzalez was said to have won by a significant margin. But yet Maduro, who's been in power since 2013, clung on in a manner which was condemned internationally. Machado said that Gonzalez must immediately take office and be recognized as the country's commander of the armed forces. She added, "Today we are prepared to enforce our mandate and take power. We are going to restore order, release the political prisoners, build an exceptional country, and bring our children back home." And just on that point, Nana, what is going to be key to restoring order and recovering Venezuela will be the state of the oil industry, because Venezuela has the largest proven oil reserves of any country in the world. The US is 9th, Venezuela is number 1 with 303 billion barrels. Saudi Arabia, by coming in second place there, around 267 billion. So Venezuela, by far and away, the world's largest proven oil reserves holder. But production has been low. There are American investors. Chevron is there. It has said today that it is keeping a close eye on the well-being of its employees and monitoring the situation. Maduro has put out a plea in the days before this operation, saying that he was hoping to entice American investors. So if it's all about oil, certainly that message of cooperation didn't get through sufficiently from Maduro's perspective. But Donald Trump very much saying today that this is about narco-trafficking. This is about the drug threat to the United States, a threat that he's hoping to wipe out with this move. But if Edmundo Gonzalez isn't put in power, and there is now a political and power vacuum inside Venezuela, with a lot of armed groups loyal to different potential leaders, some of them exiled, this could turn very nasty very quickly indeed. And that is what the US will very much be hoping does not happen, because they are hoping for political calm. They're hoping to ensure that those alleged narco small boats going towards the US stop. They've used those drone strikes in international waters, but as recently as last month, Nana, we also saw the CIA launching a drone strike on a port where these small boats were being launched from. We're also hearing reports coming out of the US media today that the CIA has had active case officers, intelligence officers working closely in Venezuela as early as August, hoping to establish a pattern of life on Maduro to better fine-tune this targeting operation. And, well, we can believe that, can't we? Because clearly they knew exactly where he would be and how easy it would be to get to him in such a manner that it appears, according to some sources in the United States, they're able to grab him and his wife out of bed before he was even able to reach his secure steel protection room. They brought kit and equipment with them, those Delta Force operators, to blow through those steel doors and to cut through them if they needed to with enhanced blowtorches. In the end, they didn't even need to have them on their backpacks.
Right, Charlie Peters, thank you very much. And it's Charlie Peters, he's our GBNews' national reporter. Will just stay with us in a matter of moments. Donald Trump will be speaking live from Mar-a-Lago about why he did why the US have done what they've done. We'll be hearing from him. But in the meantime, let's speak to foreign affairs expert Tom Clowes-Pritchard. Tom, welcome to the programme.
Good to be here.
So a very interesting sort of happening, although, to be fair, there had been months of certain things happening, like ships being, Donald Trump attacks on ships in Venezuela.
Yeah, well, it's been a very dramatic day, to say the least. I mean, this is hardly a big surprise. As you said, things have been happening. There were big operations in September. There was a seizure of the oil carrier. On the 12th of December, President Trump said it's going to be starting on land pretty soon. And obviously that was only a few weeks ago. So, yeah, I mean, this is hardly a big surprise, but it's still a very dramatic moment in geopolitics.
And out of it, do you think, because a lot of people are saying it's because of the drugs, I suspect many will be looking at the fact that Venezuela is the #1 with oil, and of course, you know, Donald Trump is not a fan of net zero.
No, well, these are all excellent reasons to go in. I think primarily, certainly for me, and other commentators have perhaps said this, there's a huge opportunity here for significant, profound regime change. The Maduro regime was thoroughly evil. It repressed its people. It threatened Guyana to the east, which is, of course, part of our Commonwealth. So we all pray that the Venezuela that eventually emerges from this process will be a less threatening one.
And it will be interesting to see what Donald Trump has to say. He will be live in a matter of moments. Do not go anywhere here on GB News. And just briefly, what are your thoughts? Was this the right thing for him to do?
Absolutely. In a word, you probably want a little bit more detail than that.
Well, why, you know?
Well, as I've said, this is an excellent opportunity for regime change, and it will be good for the Venezuelan people as well.
But a lot of people look at regime change and they say, yeah, but look at Afghanistan, look at all the other places that you've gone in, and it's just become a complete mess.
Well, I think the circumstances are very different. You're not really comparing like with like, because Venezuela already has institutions, so you are state building rather than nation building. Afghanistan, extremely different. It's a very tribal culture. There weren't those national institutions in the same sense that there are already in Venezuela. Venezuela, you've got a very developed education system. You've got a policing system. So it's very different. It's a bit chalk and cheese.
So you suspect that this one is a good move. And
Absolutely.
What about the reaction from the MAGA side of things? Because, of course, you know, Donald Trump's camp, I wonder if they are in support of that. What do we know from that side?
As far as I'm aware, it's pretty split. President Trump's more loyal supporters will be saying, yeah, this is the right thing to do. As you mentioned with the drugs, Nana, drugs are a big problem. Venezuela is hugely involved in the illegal drug trade, Maduro himself as well, and his connections.
Do we know he's definitely involved in this, or is this just a suspicion that Donald Trump has? I mean, is there actual evidence of him, Maduro, being involved in the drug trade?
Well, look, it looks like he's been indicted in New York. They wouldn't be doing that if they didn't have any evidence. So I suspect that there is a very large amount of evidence to suggest that he has been. We were talking about Maria Corina Machado. She herself said, this is not a legitimate president. This is the head of a criminal structure that was already defeated in a presidential election.
Although she would say that because she's the opposition, isn't she?
Touché, but I think it's a very valid point on behalf of Machado.
Yeah, apparently in the previous election it was unanimous that it wasn't him. He wasn't the one meant to win it, but somehow he came up victorious and now has been leading the country.
That's right.
So in terms of there's a lot of support from Venezuelans, though, who are outside of this towards Donald Trump as well.
Yeah, I mean, Venezuelan migrants to the United States have been celebrating, but also Venezuelans in Venezuela have been celebrating. We saw scenes that Charlie was showing us a moment ago. So, as I've said, this hopefully will end up being a good thing for the Venezuelan people. It will hopefully restore democracy in time to Venezuela, help Venezuela re-enter the Western sort of fold, in a way, open it up to international trade. Venezuelans will get richer. It's good for everyone.
Well, and with the question on international law, we've been discussing this because Keir Starmer, he's saying, well, he's not sure whether they've broken international law. He needs to look into it more and all this sort of thing. But does it matter? I mean, Venezuela, they're not signatories to any international law, are they? Or are they signatories to the UN? I'm not sure. Any conventions where they...
Well, they're a member of the UN, but I think it's worth bearing in mind that Venezuela aren't exactly abiding by international law here. Whether it's the drugs, whether it's weapons, whether it's threatening to invade its eastern neighbour, Guyana. So Yeah, Venezuela have not been abiding by international law.
But you get that argument with the Israel side of things. So with the Israel and Gaza conflict there, people say, oh, but, you know, Israel have broken international law. And you think, well, hang on a minute. What about Hamas? Why is it all one-sided?
No, you're absolutely right. Israel have done nothing wrong in this particular conflict. They are trying to defend themselves against terrorists bent on Israel's destruction. So, you know, there's the idea that they have somehow broken international law simply by defending themselves, frankly, is for the birds.
Well, they've even got Benjamin Netanyahu. They've got him up for The Hague, isn't he, potentially?
I'd be extremely surprised if that were to actually happen.
I mean, it's ridiculous, isn't it, that people cite that as... And there are so many countries that need to sort of... You can... The judges who sit on the panel for the International Court of Justice and all of this, it's all very convoluted, isn't it? There's no real kind of malleable centre for international law, is there?
Well, that's correct. I mean, you have various sets of institutions. You mentioned the International Court of Justice. You've also got the International Criminal Court, which is where they want to go after Netanyahu. So there are various institutions. The difficulty is that there's no real mechanism for enforcing international law except by force.
And also
some
people, although earlier you said that Benjamin Netanyahu hasn't done anything wrong, some people would possibly wish to disagree with you and say that he's done a lot of things wrong. Even some people within his own cabinet, you know, questioning some of the tactics. But, you know, that is war, and war is a very messy business. So back to Venezuela then, as we look at the situation now, do you feel that that Venezuelans will move forward? Because this could be the beginning of another turbulent area in the world just after what has happened?
Well, you know, Nana, that's way above my pay grade.
Is it?
I'm not going to predict who's going to be in government in Venezuela, but I would like to think, and I hope these aren't famous last words, I would like to think that whoever it is will be a hell of a lot better than Maduro.
And looking at Iran as well, because that seems to be the other hotbed, what are your thoughts on what's going on there?
Look, it's a situation whereby the regime looks like there might be a crack in the regime. If we are able to bring about regime change in Iran, that would obviously be desirable. Whether it is possible or not in the immediate term is another question.
Yeah, and it will be interesting to see how that pans out. And I'm wondering whether Donald Trump will mention any of that in his speech now, because obviously that's another thing that he's dealing with. It will be a live press conference. If you've just joined us, this is GB News. We're live on TV, online and on digital radio. We are awaiting that big press conference. Donald Trump is about to speak. He's there in Mar-a-Lago. We've heard what has happened in Venezuela. The Venezuelan president, of course, he has now been indicted. He's been taken to New York, where he will face charges and be put on notice, just as he would, but tried by America courts in America. And we await that speech, and Donald Trump will be telling us why exactly he's done that. A lot of people believing it is the oil, but Donald Trump has said that it is simply the fact that there's been a big drugs trade, and there has been a rather large drugs trade. I mean, Tom, what do you know about the drugs trade that has been going on between Venezuela and America?
Look, it's very significant. Obviously, Latin America is well known to be a huge centre for the international drug trade. I will admit that, you know, as a defence and international affairs commentator, I'm not an expert on drug trafficking, but it's certainly been very significant. And to lead to the president of a country being taken by US forces obviously implies that he has been very, very personally involved.
Well, look, I think we can now see a picture of Maduro. He's on board the US ship. So that is him. Donald Trump has just posted this on Truth Social, because a lot of the Venezuelans and the government were saying, look, we need to see him alive, because they weren't sure whether Maduro was actually alive. But this is a picture now of Donald Trump has posted this just to prove that Maduro, they do have him. He is on board a US ship heading towards New York. So there you have it. Also joining me, my panel, Andy Williams and also Arman Bogle. So Andy Williams, so there we have it. We've seen a picture there, Maduro.
Yeah, what a striking image. I mean, that is amazing. It reminds me a lot of when Saddam Hussein was also sort of captured, and those photos went around the world. But yeah, it's amazing to see.
That didn't go well at all, did it, Saddam Hussein? Literally, they opened up a can of worms, though, unfortunately, and then it just became lots of cells within something else, creating all sorts of discontent all over
Well, and
the
this is
world.
my point. And I mean, Tom, I have to say, I'm surprised to hear a foreign affairs commentator be so absolutely steadfastly black and white about something that's clearly really complicated. You know, America's, this is not a comment on whether this is the right or wrong thing to do. My point is we don't know yet. And it seems remarkable to me that if you look at America's last 3 big foreign interventions, at least 2.5 of them went decisively wrong. The half being Iraq, where you could make an argument that now things have stabilised. But Libya was a disaster. Afghanistan was a total catastrophe. How can we sit here now and say, yep, definitely, brilliant thing to do, cut and dry?
Well, Andy, you know, I think, as I said earlier, you're not really comparing like with like. Afghanistan and Venezuela are 2 radically different countries with radically different histories and radically different cultures.
That doesn't mean it'll produce a different result, though.
Well, of course they will. You didn't have President Trump in charge of the previous, bringing these despots to justice. You've got President Trump in charge now. It's quite simple.
So having Trump in charge changes the game, means everything will work perfectly well, does it?
Look, let's be clear. The United States has not yet lost a war decisively. Only its interests domestically have changed. Right? It wasn't President Trump running away, leaving all the US kit in Afghanistan.
No, it wasn't.
It was President Biden.
Yes.
Right?
Totally.
It wasn't President Trump who sent his Secretary of State to shake Maduro's hands at Sharm el-Sheikh in 2022. It was Biden again who sent John Kerry.
Although it was Putin who said that had President Trump been in charge, he would not have invaded Ukraine.
But of course he says that because...
But he did say that, though.
He did say that.
He didn't have to say that.
He did.
So the person in charge does make a difference, is what I'm saying.
Putin has been running rings around Trump for years, and Putin intervened in the 2016 election to try and nudge Donald. No, but it's true. He did intervene. He did. I'm not saying he intervened decisively.
Well, Obama did in our referendum.
We'll never. Oh, that's not the same. We'll never.
That's not the same.
It's no, because sorry. One was a full-scale cyber operation to intervene in a democratic election. The other was, and I'm by the way, I agree, Obama shouldn't have meddled in our referendum. He said something on a public platform, which was, I think you're referring to when he said, get to the back of the queue. Exactly. But Putin wanted Donald Trump to be president because he knew he could run rings around him. And so it has proved.
President Trump.
You don't.
Well, I'm pretty...
certainly run rings around Biden. Come on.
The last 24 hours have shown us, literally 6 hours after a Chinese communist delegation met and shook hands with Maduro, President Trump had Maduro picked up, right? The Chinese delegation is still in Caracas, by the way.
Yep. So, and what that has shown is that America absolutely has the most sophisticated, precision military in the world. Nobody's doubting that. They've done, if we're looking at the discrete job of going in and decapitating a leadership in overnight, absolutely, they have nailed it. They've done an amazing job.
But it's
I'm not criticising the military, and I'm not criticising anyone. I'm saying that we don't yet know, by definition, what's going to happen next. And I think this certainty, this sort of deep moral clarity, is just like 2002-3 all over again, the post-9/11 world where everything was very clear. No, it is not.
Well, listen, if you've just tuned in, welcome on board. 33 minutes after 4 o'clock. This is GB News. We are awaiting Donald Trump's speech. Of course, we'll be crossing live. We are watching and waiting. That is where he'll be talking in Mar-a-Lago. He's holding a press conference. Of course, it'll be he'll be explaining what happened, why they have captured Maduro, and also what they intend to do. Apparently they're going to be trying Maduro in New York under American law in American courts, and we are just waiting for that. So do not go anywhere. 34 minutes after 4 o'clock, in a matter of moments, he will be talking live. Also joining me on my panel, Andy Williams, Armand Bogle, and also we have Tom Clowes-Pritchard, who's a foreign affairs expert. Now, just coming back to the conversation that we were just having with regard to Donald Trump and, of course, the interventions that other countries make in different parts of the world, This intervention, though, surely you said that actually, you can't say because you don't know what you don't know what will happen. Nobody knows what will happen. But for one thing, Donald Trump has shown decisive leadership by saying, look, these drugs are poisoning our country, and so I'm going to stop it. And he's not just done it just suddenly. He's been over months warning the Venezuelans. You've seen them blow up boats that have been heading towards the US. He's said that there were drug boats. You've seen ships around coming to America that he has also attacked. So surely, though, the premise of what he's doing is the right thing to protect his country. That is him protecting his country, Andy.
Well, perhaps. Maybe it is the right thing to do. I don't know. And it is decisive, but you can be decisively wrong as well as decisively right. And I'm not sure that do the ends justify the means? I don't know. There are lots of my only point being, and so
does the end justify the means?
Can I just say one more thing?
Briefly,
and then is that there are only in the whole world, according to The Economist, there are roughly 70 democracies, and of those 70 democracies, about 40 of them are what they call flawed democracies, i.e., bit iffy, not great freedom of speech, etc., etc.
Who worked out which ones were flawed and which ones?
Well, that is obviously one arbiter. My point is that let's assume that between 35 and 40% of the world's countries are democracies, which means that 60% aren't. Who are the US or who is any other nation state to decide that Venezuela should be taken out today and tomorrow it should be another dictator?
When it comes to the national interest, right, same as the British national interest, I really couldn't care less if the French president doesn't like us landing illegal migrants back on the French coast. OK? That's standing up for the national interest. That's what people elect their leaders for.
Correct, but you're not then going to go and take out President Macron overnight,
it's not about taking out President Macron. It's standing up for the British national interest. And that's just exactly how President Trump is standing up for the American national interest.
But
that's what people elected him for.
But this is taking somebody out. Now, admittedly, not a democratically elected leader.
American streets with all sorts of drugs, who is funding Islamist terror hand in glove with Hezbollah, with the Iranians. Why not? Why shouldn't President Trump take action?
My point is not that he shouldn't take action in this instance. My point is, where do you draw the line?
You draw the line when your national interest has been secured.
Well, in that case, Trump's going to be very busy because he's going to have to go and take out another 80 world leaders.
It's a very big world out there.
Yes, so what's he going to do? Go and take out, 30% of African dictators? Where do you draw the line?
Perhaps they'll see what he's done and think, you know what, we're going to negotiate with this man and we're not going to let it come to that, which is what we call a deterrent, which sadly in this country we seem to be seriously lacking. Now, if you're looking on your screens now, that is a picture of Nicolas Maduro. He was a lot of his supporters, not many, I don't know how many there are, but basically they're saying, where is he? Is he actually alive? Those in his government. And so this is a picture that Donald Trump posted on Truth Social. It is Nicolas Maduro. He's there on a ship heading towards the US, which is where he will be tried for his crimes of drug trafficking. Donald Trump believes that Nicolas Maduro is actually in charge of a lot of that and siphoning a lot of the money as well. As you know, Venezuela is so rich in oil. It's actually the #1 oil-rich nation, but somehow they're incredibly poor, and that doesn't really make much sense at all. So that is, Donald Trump posted that on Truth Social just a little while earlier. But let's speak to GBNews' national reporter, Charlie Peters, whilst we wait for that live press conference with Donald Trump. So, Charlie, what more can you tell us?
Well, Nana, that photo is just extraordinary, isn't it? Released by the US President Donald Trump on his Truth Social social media platform. The photo there, which he says is Nicolas Maduro on the USS Iwo Jima, one of the ships as part of that carrier strike group that's been off the coast of Venezuela, preparing months long for this operation to, in the words of the chairman of the Senate's Armed Services Committee, degrade the narco-terrorist organizations that Maduro oversaw. And what we're seeing there, Nana, is the president of Venezuela wearing sensory deprivation equipment. And I can see that the US president...
OK, Charlie, I'm going to have to stop you there because Donald Trump has arrived. He is about to speak live. Let's cross now to Mar-a-Lago.
Late last night and early today, at my direction, the United States Armed Forces conducted an extraordinary military operation in the capital of Venezuela. Overwhelming American military power, air, land, and sea, was used to launch a spectacular assault. And it was an assault like people have not seen since World War II. It was a force against a heavily fortified military fortress in the heart of Caracas to bring outlaw dictator Nicolas Maduro to justice. This was one of the most stunning, effective, and powerful displays of American military might and competence in American history. And if you think about it, we've done some other good ones, like the attack on Soleimani, the attack on al-Baghdadi, and the obliteration and decimation of the Iran nuclear sites just recently in an operation known as Midnight Hammer. All perfectly executed and done. No nation in the world could achieve what America achieved yesterday, or frankly, in just a short period of time. All Venezuelan military capacities were rendered powerless as the men and women of our military, working with U.S. law enforcement, successfully captured Maduro in the dead of night. It was dark. The lights of Caracas were largely turned off due to a certain expertise that we have. It was dark and it was deadly. But captured along with his wife, Celia Flores, both of whom now face American justice. Maduro and Flores have been indicted in the Southern District of New York, it's Jay Clayton, for their campaign of deadly narco-terrorism against the United States and its citizens. I want to thank the men and women of our military who achieved such an extraordinary success overnight with breathtaking speed, power, precision, and competence. You rarely see anything like it. You've seen some raids in this country that didn't go so well. They were an embarrassment. If you look back to Afghanistan, or if you look back to the Jimmy Carter days, they were different days. We're a respected country again, like never before. These highly trained warriors, operating in collaboration with U.S. law enforcement, caught them in a very ready position. They were waiting for us. They knew we had many ships out in the sea, just sort of waiting. They knew we were coming. So they were in what's called a ready position. But they were completely overwhelmed and very quickly incapacitated. If you would have seen what I saw last night, you would have been very impressed. I'm not sure that you'll ever get to see it, but it was an incredible thing to see. Not a single American service member was killed, and not a single piece of American equipment was lost. We had many helicopters, many planes, many people involved in that fight. But think of that, not one piece of military equipment was lost, not one service member was, more importantly, killed. The United States military is the strongest and most fearsome military on the planet by far. With capabilities and skills our enemies can scarcely begin to imagine. We have the best equipment anywhere in the world. There's no equipment like what we have, and you see that even if you just look at the boats. You know, we've knocked out 97% of the drugs coming in by sea. 90%. Each boat kills on average, 25,000 people. We knocked out 97%. And those drugs mostly come from a place called Venezuela. We're going to run the country until such time as we can do a safe, proper, and judicious transition. So we don't want to be involved with having somebody else get in, and we have the same situation that we had for the last long period of years. So we are going to run the country until such time as we can do a safe, proper, and judicious transition. And it has to be judicious because that's what we're all about. We want peace, liberty, and justice for the great people of Venezuela, and that includes many from Venezuela that are now living in the United States and want to go back to their country. It's their homeland. We can't take a chance that somebody else takes over Venezuela that doesn't have the good of the Venezuelan people in mind. We've had decades of that. We're not going to let that happen. We're there now, and what people don't understand, but they understand as I say this, we're there now, but we're going to stay until such time as the proper transition can take place. So we're going to stay until such time as we're going to run it, essentially, until such time as a proper transition can take place. As everyone knows, the oil business in Venezuela has been a bust, a total bust, for a long period of time. They were pumping almost nothing by comparison to what they could have been pumping and what could have taken place. We're going to have our very large United States oil companies, the biggest anywhere in the world, go in, spend billions of dollars, fix the badly broken infrastructure, the oil infrastructure, and start making money for the country. And we are ready to stage a second and much larger attack if we need to do so. So we were prepared to do a second wave if we needed to do so. We actually assumed that a second wave would be necessary, but now it's probably not. The first wave, if you'd like to call it that, the first attack was so successful, we probably don't have to do a second, but we're prepared to do a second wave, a much bigger wave, actually. This was pinpoint, but we have a much bigger wave that probably won't have to do. This partnership of Venezuela with the United States of America, a country that everybody wants to be involved with because of what we were able to do and accomplish, will make the people of Venezuela rich, independent, and safe. And it will also make the many, many people from Venezuela that are living in the United States extremely happy. They suffered. They suffered. So much was taken from them. They're not going to suffer anymore. The illegitimate dictator Maduro was the kingpin of a vast criminal network responsible for trafficking colossal amounts of deadly and illicit drugs into the United States. As alleged in the indictment, he personally oversaw the vicious cartel known as Cartel de las Solas, which flooded our nation with lethal poison, responsible for the deaths of countless Americans, the many, many Americans. Hundreds of thousands over the years of Americans died because of him. Maduro and his wife will soon face the full might of American justice and stand trial on American soil. Right now, they're on a ship they'll be heading to, ultimately, New York. And then a decision will be made, I assume, between New York and Miami or Florida. But we have people where the overwhelming evidence of their crimes will be presented in a court of law. And I've seen it. I've seen what we have. It's both horrible and breathtaking that something like this could have been allowed to take place. For many years after his term as president of Venezuela expired, Maduro remained in power and waged a ceaseless campaign of violence, terror, and subversion against the United States of America, threatening not only our people, but the stability of the entire region. And you all saw it. In addition to trafficking gigantic amounts of illegal drugs that inflicted untold suffering and human destruction all over the country, all over, in particular, the United States, Maduro sent savage and murderous gangs, including the bloodthirsty prison gang Tren de Aragua, to terrorize American communities nationwide. And he did indeed. They were in Colorado. They took over apartment complexes. They cut the fingers off people if they call police. They were brutal, but they're not so brutal now. And I just have to congratulate our military, Pete and everybody, and our National Guard, because the job that they've done, whether it's in Washington, D.C., where we have a totally safe city, where it was one of the most unsafe cities anywhere in the world, frankly, and now we have no crime in Washington, D.C. We haven't had a killing. We had the terrorist attack a few weeks ago. A little bit of a different kind of a threat, but we haven't had a killing in a long period of time, 6-7 months. We used to have two, on average, 2 a week in Washington, our capital. We don't have that anymore. The restaurants are opening. Everyone's happy. They're going, they're walking their daughters, they're walking their children, their wives. They walk to restaurants. Restaurants are opening all over Washington, D.C. So I want to thank the National Guard. I want to thank our military. And I want to thank law enforcement. It's been amazing. And they should do it with more cities. We're doing it, as you know, and we're doing it in Memphis, Tennessee right now, and crime is down. We've just sort of started a few weeks ago, but crime is down now 77%. And the governor of Louisiana called, great person, and he wanted us to help him, as you know, in a certain very nice part of Louisiana. And we have done that. And it was a rough section, and we have crime down. I understand it's down to almost nothing already after 2.5 weeks. New Orleans, it's down to almost nothing. And we've only been there for 2.5 weeks. Can't imagine why governors wouldn't want us to help. We also helped, as you know, in Chicago, and crime went down a little bit there. We did a very small help because we had no working ability with the governor. The governor was a disaster, and the mayor was a disaster. But it knocked down crime. But we're pulling out of there when they need us. We'll know. You'll know. You'll be writing about it. And likewise, Los Angeles, where we saved Los Angeles early on, where the head of the police department made a statement that if the federal government didn't come in, we would have lost Los Angeles. That's long after the fires. That's when they had the riots in Los Angeles. We did a great job. Got no credit for it whatsoever, but that's okay. It doesn't matter. We don't need the credit. But we'll be pulling out when they need us. They'll call, or we'll go back if we have to. We'll go back. But we did a great job in various cities. But the place that we're very proud of is Washington, D.C., because it's our nation's capital. We took it from being a crime-ridden mess to being one of the safest cities in the country. But the gangs that they sent raped, tortured, and murdered American women and children. They were in all of the cities I mentioned, Tren de Aragua. And they were sent by Maduro to terrorize our people, and now Maduro will never again be able to threaten an American citizen or anybody from Venezuela. There will no longer be threats. For years, I've highlighted the stories of those innocent Americans whose lives were so heartlessly robbed by this Venezuelan terrorist organization. Really one of the worst. One of the worst. They say the worst. Americans like 12-year-old Jocelyn Nungari from Houston. Beautiful Jocelyn Nungari. What happened to her? They, as you know, they kidnapped, assaulted, and murdered by Tren de Aragua animals. They murdered Jocelyn and left her dead under the bridge. There was a bridge that will never be the same to so many people after seeing what happened. As I've said many times, the Maduro regime emptied out their prisons, sent their worst and most violent monsters into the United States to steal American lives. And they came from mental institutions and insane asylums. They came from prisons and jails. The reason I say both, they sound similar. Actually, prisons a little bit more hostile, a little bit tougher. A mental institution isn't as tough as an insane asylum, but we got them both. They sent from their mental institutions. They sent from their jails, prisons. They were drug dealers. They were drug kingpins. They sent everybody bad into the United States. but no longer. And we have now a border where nobody gets through. In addition, Venezuela unilaterally seized and stole American oil, American assets, and American platforms, costing us billions and billions of dollars. They did this a while ago, but we never had a president that did anything about it. They took all of our property. It was our property. We built it. And we never had a president that decided to do anything about it. Instead, they fought wars that were 10,000 miles away. We built Venezuela oil industry with American talent, drive, and skill, and the socialist regime stole it from us during those previous administrations, and they stole it through force. This constituted one of the largest thefts of American property in the history of our country. Considered the largest theft of property in the history of our country. Massive oil infrastructure was taken like we were babies, and we didn't do anything about it. I would have done something about it. America will never allow foreign powers to rob our people or drive us back into and out of our own hemisphere. That's what they did. Furthermore, under the now deposed dictator Maduro, Venezuela was increasingly hosting foreign adversaries in our region and acquiring menacing offensive weapons that could threaten U.S. interests and lives. And they used those weapons last night. Potentially in league with the cartels operating along our border. All of these actions were in gross violation of the core principles of American foreign policy, dating back more than 2 centuries, and not anymore. All the way back, it dated to the Monroe Doctrines, and the Monroe Doctrine is a big deal, but we've superseded it by a lot, by a real lot. They now call it the Monroe Document. I don't know. It's Monroe Doctrine. We sort of forgot about it. It was very important, but we forgot about it. We don't forget about it anymore. Under our new national security strategy, American dominance in the Western Hemisphere will never be questioned again. Won't happen. So just in concluding, for decades, other administrations have neglected or even contributed to these growing security threats in the Western Hemisphere. Under the Trump administration, we are reasserting American power in a very powerful way in our home region. And our home region is very different than it was just a short while ago. The future will be, and we did this in my first term. We had great dominance in my first term, and we have far greater dominance right now. Everyone's coming back to us. The future will be determined by the ability to protect commerce and territory and resources that are core to national security. These are core to our national security. Just like tariffs are, they've made our country rich, and they've made our national security stronger than ever before. But these are the iron laws that have always determined global power. And we're going to keep it that way. We will secure our borders. We will stop the terrorists. We will crash the cartels, and we will defend our citizens against all threats, foreign and domestic. Other presidents may have lacked the courage or whatever to defend America, but I will never allow terrorists and criminals to operate with impunity against the United States. This extremely successful operation should serve as warning to anyone who would threaten American sovereignty or endanger American lives. Very importantly, the embargo on all Venezuelan oil remains in full effect. The American Armada remains poised in position, and the United States retains all military options until United States demands have been fully met and fully satisfied. All political and military figures in Venezuela should understand what happened to Maduro can happen to them, and it will happen to them if they aren't just fair, even to their people. The dictator and terrorist, Maduro, is finally gone, and Venezuela people are free. They're free again. It's been a long time for them, but they're free. America is a safer nation. This morning, It's a prouder nation this morning because it didn't allow this horrible person and this country that was doing very bad things to us. It didn't allow it to happen. And the Western Hemisphere is right now a much safer place to be. So I want to thank everybody for being here. I want to thank General Raisin Cain. He's a fantastic man. I've worked with a lot of generals. I worked with some I didn't like. I worked with some I didn't respect. I worked with some that just weren't good. But this guy is fantastic. I watched last night one of the most precise attacks on sovereignty. I mean, it was an attack for justice. And I'm very proud of him, and I'm very proud of our Secretary of War, Pete Hegseth, who I'm going to ask to say a few words. Thank you very much.
Mr. President, can you explain how the U.S. will run Venezuela?
Well, thank you, Mr. President. Finally, a commander-in-chief the world respects and the American people deserve. And as the President said, words can barely capture the bravery and the power and the precision of this historic operation. A massive joint military and law enforcement raid flawlessly executed by the greatest Americans our country has to offer. American warriors are second to none, the best in the world and the best of our country. What all of us witnessed last night was sheer guts and grit, gallantry and glory of the American warrior. I'm simply humbled by such men. And I tip my hat to our chairman, Dan Raisin Cain, and all those Americans who stood watch last night. Our warriors are the elite of America, and again, President Trump has your back. No other country on planet Earth, and it's not even close, could pull this kind of operation off. And no other president has ever shown this kind of leadership, courage, and resolve. The most powerful combination the world has ever seen. As the president said, our adversaries remain on notice. America can project our will anywhere, anytime. The coordination, the stealth, the lethality, the precision, the very long arm of American justice, all on full display in the middle of the night. Nicolas Maduro had his chance, just like Iran had their chance, until they didn't and until he didn't. He effed around and he found out. President Trump is deadly serious about stopping the flow of gangs and violence to our country. Deadly serious about stopping the flow of drugs and poison to our people. Deadly serious about getting back the oil that was stolen from us. And deadly serious about reestablishing American deterrence and dominance in the Western Hemisphere. This is about the safety, security, freedom, and prosperity of the American people. This is America first. This is peace through strength. And the United States War Department is proud to help deliver it. Welcome to 2026. And under President Trump, America is back. I'd like to welcome now our chairman, Chairman Raisin Cain, to give a few more details about the operation. Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Mr. Secretary. Thank you, Mr. President, and good morning. Last night, on the order of the President of the United States and in support of a request from the Department of Justice, as the President said, the United States military conducted an apprehension mission in Caracas, Venezuela, to bring to justice two indicted persons, Nicolas and Cecilia Maduro. This operation, known as Operation Absolute Resolve, was discreet, precise, and conducted during the darkest hours of January 2nd and was the culmination of months of planning and rehearsal, an operation that, frankly, only the United States military could undertake. What I'd like to do this morning is talk to you through some of the preparation and the details without compromising any of our tactics, techniques, and procedures. There is always a chance that we'll be tasked to do this type of mission again. Our interagency work began months ago and built on decades of experience of integrating complex air, ground, space, and maritime operations. While the past 2 decades have honed the skills of our special operations forces, this particular mission required every component of our joint force, with soldiers, sailors, airmen, Marines, and Guardians working in unison with our intelligence agency partners and law enforcement teammates in an unprecedented operation. We leveraged our unmatched intelligence capabilities and our years of experience in hunting terrorists, and we could not have done this mission without the incredible work by various intelligence agencies, including the CIA, NSA, and NGA. We watched, we waited, we prepared, we remained patient and professional. This mission was meticulously planned, drawing lessons from decades of missions over the last many years, many missions over these last many years. This was an audacious operation that only the United States could do. It required the utmost of precision and integration within our joint force. And the word integration does not explain the sheer complexity of such a mission. An extraction so precise it involved more than 150 aircraft launching across the Western Hemisphere in close coordination, all coming together in time and place to layer effects for a single purpose: to get an interdiction force into downtown Caracas while maintaining the element of tactical surprise. Failure of one component of this well-oiled machine would have endangered the entire mission, and failure is never an option for America's joint force. Those in the air over Caracas last night were willing to give their lives for those on the ground and in the helicopters. Let me talk a little bit about the preparation. After months of work by our intelligence teammates to find Maduro and understand how he moved, where he lived, where he traveled, what he ate, what he wore, what were his pets. In early December, our force was set pending a series of aligned events. Key was choosing the right day to minimize the potential for civilian harm and maximize the element of surprise, and minimize the harm to the indicted personnel so, as the president said, they could be brought to justice. And as the president said earlier today, weather in Venezuela is always a factor this time of the year. And over the weeks through Christmas and New Year's, the men and women of the United States military sat ready, patiently waiting for the right triggers to be met and the president to order us into action. Last night, the weather broke just enough, clearing a path that only the most skilled aviators in the world could maneuver through. Ocean, mountain, low cloud ceilings. But when tasked with a mission, this organization does not quit. At 10:46 p.m. Eastern Time last night, the president ordered the United States military to move forward with this mission. He said to us, and we appreciate it, Mr. President, good luck and Godspeed. And those words were transmitted to the entire joint force. Over the course of the night, aircraft began launching from 20 different bases on land and sea across the Western Hemisphere. In total, more than 150 aircraft, bombers, fighters, intelligence, reconnaissance, surveillance, rotary wing were in the air last night. Thousands and thousands of hours of experience were airborne. Our youngest crew member was 20, and our oldest crew member was 49. And there's simply no match for American military might. As the night began, the helicopters took off with the extraction force, which included law enforcement officers, and began their flight into Venezuela at 100 feet above the water. As they approached Venezuelan shores, the United States began layering different effects provided by Spacecom, Cybercom, and other members of the interagency to create a pathway. Overhead, those forces were protected by aircraft from the United States Marines, the United States Navy, the United States Air Force, and the Air National Guard. The force included F-22s, F-35s, F-18s, EA-18s, E-2s, B-1 bombers, and other support aircraft, as well as numerous remotely piloted drones. As the force began to approach Caracas, the Joint Air Component began dismantling and disabling the air defense systems in Venezuela, employing weapons to ensure the safe passage of the helicopters into the target area. The goal of our air component is, was, and always will be to protect the helicopters and the ground force and get them to the target and get them home. As the force crossed the last point of high terrain where they'd been hiding in the clutter, we assessed that we had maintained totally the element of surprise. As the helicopter force ingressed towards the objective at low level, we arrived at Maduro's compound at 1:01 a.m. Eastern Standard Time, or 2:01 a.m. Caracas local time, and the apprehension force descended into Maduro's compound and moved with speed, precision, and discipline towards their objective and isolated the area to ensure the safety and security of the ground force while apprehending the indicted persons. On arrival into the target area, the helicopters came under fire, and they replied with that fire with overwhelming force in self-defense. One of our aircraft was hit but remained flyable, and as the President said earlier today, all of our aircraft came home, and that aircraft remained flyable during the rest of the mission. As the operation unfolded at the compound, our air and ground intelligence teams provided real-time updates to the ground force, ensuring those forces could safely navigate the complex environment without unnecessary risk. The force remained protected by overhead tactical aviation. Maduro and his wife, both indicted, gave up and were taken into custody by the Department of Justice, assisted by our incredible U.S. military with professionalism and precision, with no loss of U.S. life. After securing the indicted persons, the force began to prep for departure. Helicopters were called in to exfiltrate the extraction force, while fighter aircraft and remotely piloted aircraft provided overhead coverage and suppressive fire. There were multiple self-defense engagements as the force began to withdraw out of Venezuela. The force successfully exfiltrated and returned to their afloat launch bases, and the force was over the water at 3:29 a.m. Eastern Standard Time with indicted persons on board. And both Maduro and his wife were embarked aboard the USS Iwo Jima. In closing, what we've witnessed today is a powerful demonstration of America's joint force. We think, we develop, we train, we rehearse, we debrief, we rehearse again and again, not to get it right, but to ensure that we cannot get it wrong. Our jobs are to integrate combat power so when the order comes, we can deliver overwhelming force at the time and the place of our choosing against any foe anywhere in the world. I am immensely proud today of our joint force and filled with gratitude to represent them here today. There is simply no mission too difficult for these incredible professionals and the families that stand by them and support them. As we stand here this morning, our forces remain in the region at a high state of readiness, prepared to project power, defend themselves, and our interests in the region. This operation is a testament to the dedication and unwavering commitment to justice and our resolve to hold accountable those who threaten peace and stability. In closing, I want to express my heartfelt gratitude to the brave men and women who executed this mission. Their courage and tireless commitment to our nation are what makes us strong. Thank you, Mr. Secretary, and thank you, Mr. President.
Well, I don't have much to add to what you've heard now, other than the following points. Nicolas Maduro was indicted in 2020 in the United States. He is not the legitimate president of Venezuela. That's not just us saying it. The first Trump administration, the Biden administration, the second Trump administration, none of those three recognized him. He's not recognized by the European Union and multiple countries around the world. He is a fugitive of American justice with a $50 million reward, which I guess we saved $50 million. And
Make sure.
Yeah, exactly. But
Don't let anybody claim it. Nobody deserves it but us.
But I want to be clear about one thing. Nicolas Maduro had multiple opportunities to avoid this. He was provided multiple very, very, very generous offers. and chose instead to act like a wild man, chose instead to play around. And the result is what we saw tonight. The other message here is the following. You have a guy, like many people around the world, they like to play games. You have a guy who decides he's going to invite Iran into his country, is going to, do the confiscation of American oil companies, is going to flood our country with gang members, is going to take Americans prisoner and try to hold them for hostage and trade them like he was able to do with the Biden administration. Basically likes to play games all this time and thinks nothing's going to happen. And I hope what people now understand is that we have a president. The 47th president of the United States is not a game player. When he tells you that he's going to do something, when tells you he's going to address a problem, he means it. He actions it. I can tell you, I've watched this process now for 14, 15 years, been around it. Everybody talks. I'm going to do this. I'm going to do that. When I get there, we're going to do this. We're going to take. This is a president of action. Like, I don't understand yet how they haven't figured this out. And now, if you don't know, now you know. Because this is the way it's going to play out. And I think people need to understand that this is not a president that just talks and does letters and press conferences. And, if he says he's serious about something, he means it. And this is something that was a direct threat to the national interest of the United States, and the president addressed it. There's a president of peace, by the way. I told you what I just said earlier. This guy had multiple opportunities to find his way somewhere else and figure out another. He could have been living somewhere else right now, very happy, but instead he wanted to play big boy. And so now, he's got other sets of problems on his hands. And but I think the message here should be for the world. Look, the president doesn't go out looking for people to pick fights with. He's not generally wants to get along with everybody. We'll talk and meet with anybody, but don't play games. Don't play games with this president's in office, because it's not going to turn out well. And so I hope that I guess that lesson was learned last night, and we hope it'll be instructive moving forward.
Is that a message for Cuba? Mr. President.
Mr. President.
Mr. President.
Mr. President. You said that the U.S. is going to run Venezuela. So who's in power right now?
Well, we're going to be running it with a group, and we're going to make sure it's run properly. We're going to rebuild the oil infrastructure, which will cost billions of dollars. It'll be paid for by the oil companies directly. They will be reimbursed for what they're doing, but that's going to be paid. And we're going to get the oil flowing the way it should be. As you know, it was just a minor flow. It was actually a minor flow for what they have. But we're going to run it properly, and we're going to make sure the people of Venezuela are taken care of. We're going to make sure the people that were forced out of Venezuela by this thug are also taken care of.
Mr. President, does the U.S. running the country mean that U.S. troops will be on the ground? How will that work?
Well, they always say boots on the ground. So we're not afraid of boots on the ground if we have to have. We had boots on the ground last night at a very high level, actually. We're not afraid of it. We don't mind saying it, but we're going to make sure that that country is run properly. We're not doing this in vain. This is a very dangerous attack. This is an attack that could have gone very, very badly. Could have gone very badly. We could have lost a lot of people last night. We could have lost a lot of dignity. We could have lost a lot of equipment. The equipment is less important, but we could have lost a lot. And we're going to make sure that this is proper. We're there now. We're ready to go again if we have to. We're going to run the country right. It's going to be run very judiciously, very fairly. It's going to make a lot of money. We're going to give money to the people. We're going to reimburse people that were taken advantage of. We're going to take care of everybody. It's very important. We couldn't let them get away with it. They stole our oil. We built that whole industry there. And they just took it over like we were nothing. And we had a president that decided not to do anything about it. So we did something about it. We're late, but we did something about it. Yeah, please.
Mr. President, can you explain the exact mechanism by which you're going to run the country? Are you going to designate a U.S. official to coordinate?
Yes, it's all being done right now. We're designating people. We're talking to people. We're designating various people, and we're going to let you know who those people are.
That would run Venezuela?
Well, it's largely going to be, for a period of time, the people that are standing right behind me. We're going to be running it. We're going to be bringing it back. It's a dead, I talk about a dead country. A year and a half ago, we were a dead country. Now we're the hottest country anywhere in the world. We're a country doing better than any country anywhere in the world. And it required leadership. Venezuela has a lot of bad people in there, a lot of bad people that shouldn't be leading. We're not going to take a chance that one of those people take over for Maduro. So you can look at, and others, we have fantastic people, including people in the military, So we're going to have a group of people running it until such time as it can be put back on track, make a lot of money for the people, and give people a great way of life, and also reimbursement for people in our country that were forced out of Venezuela.
Rubio would be.
You said earlier today that you weren't going to back Machado to come back and be the opposition leader in your Fox and Friends interview. And then you also mentioned the vice president of Venezuela. Are you going to work with the vice president of Venezuela, or how do you foresee the relationship
Well, I
going?
understand she was just sworn in, but she was, as you know, picked by Maduro. So Marco's working on that directly. He's just had a conversation with her, and she's essentially willing to do what we think is necessary to make Venezuela great again. Very simple.
Mr. President, Colombian President Gustavo Petro, a couple weeks ago, you said he's got to watch his ass. And today, he said he's not concerned about anything happening to him in the aftermath of this operation. So, just what your message is
Well,
about
he
that.
has cocaine mills. He has factories where he makes cocaine. And yeah, I think I stick by my first statement. He's making cocaine. They're sending it into the United States. So he does have to watch his ass.
Mr. President, did you notify any members of Congress in advance?
Marco, do you want to talk about that? Because you were involved in it.
Sure. We called members of Congress immediately after. This was not the kind of mission that you can do congressional notification on. It was a trigger-based mission in which conditions had to be met night after night. We watched and monitored that for a number of days. So it's just simply not the kind of mission you can call people and say, hey, we may do this at some point in the next 15 days. But it's largely a law enforcement function. Remember, at the end of the day, at its core, this was an arrest of 2 indicted fugitives of American justice, and the Department of War supported the Department of Justice in that job. Now, there are broader policy implications here, but it's just not the kind of mission that you can pre-notify because it endangers the mission.
Plus, if I could add one thing to that, Congress has a tendency to leak. This would not be good. If they leaked, General, I think it would have been maybe a very different result. But I have to say, they knew we were coming at some point, you know. We had a lot of ships out there. They sort of knew we were coming. We went there. But Congress will leak, and we don't want leakers.
Mr. President, you were one of the only people to watch this all play out live. What was Maduro doing when the U.S. forces entered what I assume would be his home? And also, was there any point where the U.S. was considering if Maduro pushed back or resisted killing Maduro?
It could have happened. It could have happened. He was trying to get into a safe place. You know what a safe place is, all steel. And he wasn't able to make it to the door because our guys were so fast. They went through the opposition so fast. And there was a lot of opposition. You know, people were wondering, do we get them by surprise? Sort of surprised, but they were waiting for something. It was a lot of opposition. There was a lot of gunfire. You saw some of it today. But he was trying to get to a safe place, which wasn't safe because we would have had the door blown up in about 47 seconds, they say on average, regardless of how thick the steel was. It was a very thick door. It was a very heavy door, but he was unable to get to that door. He made it to the door. He was unable to close it.
Go
ahead, finish.
Where is Maduro going to be in the time being right now? Do you know his exact
Well,
whereabouts?
eventually, ultimately, in the near future, he's going to be brought to New York.
And where is he going to be held? Where is he going to be held in New York? Do you know?
That's going to be up to the officials that do these things.
Mr. President, the U.S. has something of a mixed track record of ousting dictators without necessarily a plan for what comes afterwards.
Not with
Did
me,
that weigh on your decision?
Well, that's why we had different presidents, but with me, that's not true. With me, we've had a perfect track record of winning. We win a lot, and we win. If you look at Soleimani, you look at al-Baghdadi, you look at the Midnight Hammer. Midnight Hammer was incredible. Right now, you wouldn't have peace in the Middle East. We have essentially peace in the Middle East because of that. If we weren't successful with Midnight Hammer, you wouldn't have peace in the Middle East. So, with me, you've had a lot of victory. You've had only victories. You've had no losses. Yeah.
President, how long do you expect the U.S. to run Venezuela, and how soon do you want the Venezuelan people to hold elections?
So I'd like to do it quickly, but it takes a period of time. You know, we're rebuilding. We have to rebuild their whole infrastructure. The infrastructure is rotted. It's actually very dangerous. It's blow-up territory. Oil is very dangerous. It's a very dangerous thing to take out of the ground. Can kill a lot of people. It has killed a lot of people doing just that. The infrastructure is old. It's rotted. Much of it is stuff that we put there 25 years ago, and we're going to be replacing it. And we're going to take a lot of money out so that we can take care of the country. Yeah.
Are you saying that Secretary Rubio and
Mr. President, China, Russia, and Iran have interests in Venezuela. How does this operation affect your relationships with them when it comes to the oil and
China
drugs?
and Russia, well, Russia when we get things straightened out. But in terms of other countries that want oil, we're in the oil business. We're going to sell it to them. We're not going to say we're not going to give it to them. In other words, we'll be selling oil probably in much larger doses because they couldn't produce very much because their infrastructure was so bad. So we'll be selling large amounts of oil to other countries, many of whom are using it now, but I would say many more will come.
Now, are you saying, Mr. President, are you saying that, Mr. President, are you saying that? Oh.
Mr. President, thank you. What is your message to the people of Venezuela today? Of course, the civilian population specifically, they have a lot of questions. What is your message to the people of Venezuela?
That you're going to have peace, justice. You're going to have some of the riches that you should have had for a long period of time. It was stolen from you. But you're going to have peace and you're going to have safety. You're going to have justice. You're going to have a country. You're going to have a real country. You're going to have potentially a great country. You know, if you go back 20 years, maybe even a little longer ago, that was a great country. And they destroyed it. Remember I said that if we lose this election, the United States will be Venezuela on steroids. That's what would have happened. Had we lost the election, the 2024 election, we suffered so badly. When you look at the border from 2020, what they did, what Joe Biden administration did to our country should never be forgotten. But if we had to go through another year of that, we would be exactly where Venezuela was. In terms, I used to say, if they win, we're going to be Venezuela on steroids, and that's what would have happened.
President, thank you. Are you saying that Secretary Hegseth and Rubio are going to be running Venezuela, and will you be sending in U.S. military troops to provide?
They're going to be a team that's working with the people of Venezuela to make sure that we have Venezuela right. Because for us to just leave, who's going to take over? I mean, there is nobody to take over. You have a vice president who's been appointed by Maduro. And right now she's the vice president, and she's, I guess, the president. She was sworn in as president just a little while ago. She had a long conversation with Marco, and she said, we'll do whatever you need. I think she was quite gracious, but she really doesn't have a choice. We're going to have this done right. We're not going to just do this with Maduro, then leave like everybody else, leave and say, you know, let it go to hell. If we just left, it has zero chance of ever coming back. We'll run it properly. We'll run it professionally. We'll have the greatest oil companies in the world go in and invest billions and billions of dollars and take out money, use that money in Venezuela. And the biggest beneficiary are going to be the people of Venezuela. And also, I can't stress this strongly enough, the people that got thrown out of Venezuela that are now in the United States, and frankly, some want to stay and some probably want to go back, yeah.
Being done to protect Americans in the country, and were any of the detained Americans?
Well, right now they're very protected because nobody's going to mess with us. They're very protected. The people of, and we let them know that you better not touch one of them.
Are you concerned that bad elements of the Maduro regime will remain in place?
Well, we know who they are. We're on them, and they're acting much differently now than they would have acted 2 days ago. Okay, wait, behind you, please.
Mr. President, why is running a country in South America America first?
Well, I think it is because we want to surround ourselves with good neighbors. We want to surround ourselves with stability. We want to surround ourselves with energy. We have tremendous energy in that country. It's very important that we protect it. We need that for ourselves. We need that for the world. And we want to make sure we can protect it. Yes, sir. Please, go ahead.
Yeah, is there a message here for Cuba and Diaz-Canel?
Well, Cuba is an interesting case. Cuba is, you know, not doing very well right now. That system has not been a very good one for Cuba. The people there have suffered for many, many years. And I think Cuba is going to be something we'll end up talking about because Cuba is a failing nation right now, very badly failing nation. And we want to help the people. It's very similar in the sense that we want to help the people in Cuba, but we want to also help the people that were forced out of Cuba and living in this country. Do you want to say something about that, Marco, please?
Well, I mean, I just gave you a statement a few minutes ago about, you know, when the president speaks, you should take him seriously. So, suffice it to say, you know, Cuba is a disaster. It's run by incompetent, senile men, and in some cases, not senile, but incompetent nonetheless. It has no economy. It's in total collapse. And by the way, You know, they were, all of the guards that helped protect Maduro, this is well known, their whole spy agency, all that were full of Cubans. I mean, they basically, it's amazing. This poor island took over Venezuela in some cases. One of the biggest problems the Venezuelans have is they have to declare independence from Cuba that tried to basically colonize it from a security standpoint. So, yeah, look, if I lived in Havana and I was in the government, I'd be concerned, at least a little bit.
Cutting off the oil flow to Cuba from Venezuela?
Well, the president already announced a week ago that anything that's sanctioned, it's sanctioned oil, it's not going to be allowed to get there. So that's a pre-existing.
Mr. President.
The answer is yes.
Mr. President.
Yes.
Aware of the location of opposition leader Machado, and have you been in contact with her?
No, we haven't. No, we haven't.
Mr. President.
Do you have any hesitations about Machado?
Mr. President, on Monday.
Oh, I think it would be very tough for her to be the leader. She doesn't have the support within or the respect within the country. She's a very nice woman, but she doesn't have the respect to be the leader.
Mr. President, is it possible that the U.S. ends up administrating Venezuela for years?
Well, it won't cost us anything because the money coming out of the ground is very substantial, so it's not going to cost us anything. We will. Well, we want safety there. We want to be surrounded by countries that aren't housing all of our enemies all over the world. That's what was happening, and you don't want to have that. But we're going to be rebuilding, and we're not spending money. The oil companies are going to go in. They're going to spend money. We're going to take back the oil that, frankly, we should have taken back a long time ago. A lot of money is coming out of the ground. We're going to get reimbursed for all of that. We're going to get reimbursed for everything that we spend. So it's going to be a very important. This is a very big evening that took place last night. We have to be surrounded by safe, secure countries, and we also have to have energy. Very important. We have to have energy that's real energy, not where they're getting 4% and 5% of the energy out of the ground. You take a look. It was such a disaster. So what's going to happen with Venezuela, I think, over the next period of a year is going to be a great thing. And the people of Venezuela will be the biggest beneficiaries.
Mr. President,
U.S. military.
Mr. President, thank you. What did you last speak to Maduro about when you spoke? And is the U.S.
Well, I don't want to get into the
Venezuela?
conversations, but I did have conversations with him, and I said, you got to surrender. And I actually thought he was pretty close to doing so, but now he wished he did, yeah.
You said that Maduro is responsible for drug trafficking. You recently pardoned the former president of Honduras who was convicted on many drug trafficking. Can you explain how these two situations are different? And would you ever pardon Maduro?
I endorsed, as you know, the winning president, the man who won in Honduras. I endorsed the man who won in Chile. I endorsed the man who won in Argentina. And we are doing very well with that whole group. What the man that I pardoned was, if you could equate it to us, he was treated like the Biden administration treated a man named Trump. That didn't work out too well for them. This was a man who was persecuted very unfairly. He was the head of the country. He was persecuted very unfairly. And there are a number of them. And we felt that it was a very unfair situation that happened to him. He's also a party member of the man who won. So obviously the people liked what I did. And one of the reasons that was done is because of the fact that the party in power felt very strongly that that man was treated very badly. I studied it very quickly, and then I studied it in great detail. I went to a lot of the people standing behind me, and they felt that that man was persecuted and treated very badly. That's why I gave him a pardon.
You referenced boots on the ground earlier. Can you just sort of button this up? Do you envision the U.S. military having a presence in Venezuela as the U.S. runs that country?
No, we're going to have a presence in Venezuela as it pertains to oil, because we have to have, we're sending our expertise in. So you may need something, not very much. But no, we're going to be taking out a tremendous amount of wealth out of the ground. And that wealth is going to the people of Venezuela and people from outside of Venezuela that used to be in Venezuela. And it goes also to the United States of America in the form of reimbursement for the damages caused us by that country. So I want to thank you all very much. Thank you. Do you have one? Yes, please. You were so nice before. I'm going to give you the final question. Go ahead.
Thank you, Mr.
Unless
President.
it's a bad question, in which case I'll go one word. It's about who?
It's about Putin, if you want.
About Putin? Well, that's always nice to talk about Putin.
You had a phone call with him on Monday. Did he talk at all about Maduro? Did y'all talk about this?
No, we didn't. We never spoke about Maduro.
Are you mad at him right now? I mean, there's this
I'm not thrilled with Putin. I'm not thrilled with Putin. He's killing too many people.
Was that
I thought that would be so. I settled 8 1/4 war. You know what the 1/4 was? Thailand and Cambodia. I did it again. They broke out, and I did it in about 5 hours, and I settled it. I'm giving myself 1/4, so I'm up to now 8 1/4. In other words, I settled the war, but then they broke out. They had a pretty bad breakout over the last 4 days. I got them to go back to peace, so I only give 1/4. I thought the easiest one would be, one of the easier ones would be Russia, Ukraine. It's not, and they both have done some pretty bad things. And look, that's Biden's war. That's not my war. But I want to stop the lives. Did you see where last month, 30,000, it was 27,000 the month before. 30,000, mostly soldiers, were killed this last month. 30,000. I want to stop that. You know, I got NATO to pay 5% instead of the 2% that they weren't paying. They weren't paying 2, now they pay 5. And we send them a lot of munitions. We send them a lot of things, missiles and various other things, a lot. And they pay. The United States is not losing money. We're probably making money on that. It's the last thing I care about. I just want to stop all those people. We're losing 25, 30,000 human beings that come from 2 places that are very far away. But if I can stop, because it's something I've been pretty good at doing, deals, I guess. It's all a deal. Life is a big deal. But if I can stop that war and stop 30,000 young people, in addition to the fact that people are being killed in Kiev, people are being killed in other cities throughout, you know, a much smaller number, but they're being killed, viciously killed. So I'm not happy about it. I thought that would be something that would get solved. We have Mr. Witkoff here. I think that we're making progress, but that's a war that should have never happened. If I were president, it would have never happened. Putin says it. Everybody says it. If I were president, that would have never happened. But I inherited that war. That was Joe Biden, Zelensky, and Putin. I came into the situation, and it's a mess. And I will say this. I watched an operation last night that was so precise, that was so brilliant. I mean, it was incredible. If we had our people, like this general, and our people involved, that war would not have gone on very long, that I can tell you. That war, to use an old term, that war has become a bloodbath, and we want it to get stopped. Thank you very much.
So that was Donald Trump, his press conference. We were live in Mar-a-Lago, where he spoke very eloquently about what he called a spectacular assault not seen since World War II. He said it was stunning, effective, powerful display of might and confidence of the US's ability. He talked about some of the other wars, Soleimani, Baghdadi, and other ones. He also said that they successfully captured Maduro in the dead of night. They did something incredible where they turned out all the lights. They're both, Maduro and his wife, were indicted in the US for narco-terrorism, and he thanked the military and others who put that job together. He also spoke of how 97% of the drugs mostly were coming from Venezuela, and he then spoke about the oil business. He said it's a total bust, which referring to the fact that the people of Venezuela were not making any money out of it. He said they were pumping a fraction of the vitally essential oil that they needed, and he said that the US companies were going to fix the oil industry and basically take over the oil industry. When he's asked who would run Venezuela, he said that the US would. He said that they will look after Venezuela for a period of time until it will be up and ready to go. He also said that we heard from Marco Rubio and also from Sam Kane, who spoke about the planning of the attack and the assault, and he said that President Trump had said to him, "Good luck, Godspeed." Those were Trump's words. Right, well, let's get some reaction from our national reporter, Charlie Peters, who joins us now. Charlie, quite an incredible press conference, and Donald Trump being very, very open.
Yes, Nana, and we also learned from Raisin Kane, Dan Kane, the chief of the staff there, the general, saying that the operation was called Absolute Resolve, very similar to the operation used for the counter-ISIS operations, Inherent Resolve. And just checking my clock at the end of that press conference there, it ran to nearly an hour. So the length of that press conference, nearly about half the length of the entire operation that ran last night, 2 hours and 20 minutes from start to finish to get Nicolas Maduro extracted by the 160th Aviation Regiment, the Special Operations Force, with Delta Force. Wasn't names, of course, you'd expect, by the US government officials and the president himself. And let's just keep that photo on the screen for now, Nana, because we heard from Donald Trump talking about how Department of Justice officials were part of that. And Dan Kane said that when the joint forces launched their helicopters and when they departed from the carrier strike group from their launching point towards Caracas, that it was a mixture of US military personnel and also Department of Justice officials. And we just stay on that photograph. You see on the right, you see the E on a black jacket. Now, I've just checked some other examples of it. I think that is a jacket from an official from the Drugs Enforcement Agency, from the DOJ, the Department of Justice. So that's a jacket from a member of staff from the DEA, the Drugs Enforcement Agency. And of course, that will be central to the justification of this operation that Donald Trump has launched. They have Nicolas Maduro wearing the sensory deprivation equipment typically associated with prisoners under the jurisdiction of the United States when they are moved around sensitive locations, particularly when they're on board a warship like the USS Iwo Jima. But that is a DEA official next to you, I'm certain of that, because they'll be wanting to show the reason why the premier justification for this operation is the narco-terrorist threat to the United States, the hundreds of thousands of deaths caused by drugs, specifically fentanyl being mentioned by Donald Trump earlier today, and how he has claimed that Maduro has played a central role in that threat, facilitating the movement of drugs. And that has led, of course, since September to the US government launching 115 lethal strikes on those small boats carrying drugs, allegedly, towards the United States. And we also saw the CIA launching a drone strike on a port, which was being used to facilitate the use of drugs and their smuggling towards the United States as well. However, Nana, during that press conference we just heard, the DEA would not be a huge part of all that he spoke about. We'd be speaking more about the Department of Energy, because oil was a significant section of his updates. We are going to run the country right, Trump said, as he turned to discussions about oil. And he said it's going to make a lot of money. He said about those previous Venezuelan governments, including that of the man on your screens right now, Nicolas Maduro, in power since 2013, Trump said they stole our oil. He was also asked about the America First policy and to what extent could it be said that this was an America First move, and will the US military be involved in running Venezuela, as Venezuela appears to become, Nana, extraordinary update, a part of the American empire. Venezuela is now being run by, he said, the group behind me, including Marco Rubio, Pete Hegseth. It's a remarkable announcement. And he said, we're not afraid of boots on the ground if we have to have them. And of course, the US administration under Trump's rule has repeatedly suggested that its posture is against deploying troops overseas. He ran on both elections against, quote, forever wars and those long-running entanglements in the Middle East. But he talked up his record of intervention, speaking about al-Baghdadi, the leader of ISIS, who he successfully assassinated in his first term. He spoke also about Midnight Hammer, the B-2 bomber operation on the Iranian nuclear facilities, in particular Isfahan, which he said were a great success and led to peace in the Middle East. And he also spoke, I think, about Qasem Soleimani, the Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps general, the leader of the Iranian asymmetric force in Iran, who was assassinated on this day 6 years ago, January the 3rd. So also spoke about other interventions he's made. But Nana, my key takeaways from those updates from Donald Trump, first and foremost, he says he's going to run Venezuela, but how much oil and drugs were part of that justification, and how we only heard a few things about his commitments to the Venezuelan people and the detail on how the country would be run, and also warnings to other presidents in South America, including to the leadership in Colombia. He said he's going to have to watch his ass.
Sounds like they're next. Thank you very much, Charlie Peters. Really good to talk to you. That is Charlie Peters, GBNews' national reporter. Well, if you just joined us, welcome on board. Of course, we've been bringing you that breaking news. Let's just remind ourselves of one of the key lines from Donald Trump's press conference, that he said he will run Venezuela until proper transition.
We're going to run the country until such time as we can do a safe, proper, and judicious transition. So we don't want to be involved with having somebody else get in, and we have the same situation that we had for the last long period of years. So we are going to run the country until such time as we can do a safe, proper, and judicious transition. And it has to be judicious, because that's what we're all about. We want peace, liberty, and justice for the great people of Venezuela.
All right, so that was Donald Trump just a few moments earlier. Well, joining me now is the chairman for Republicans Overseas UK, Greg Svensson, quietening. Well, I mean, I sat there, I was at the edge of my seat listening to absolutely all of that. And in particular, when we got to the press conference, when they said, well, who's in power now? And then Donald Trump said, well, we will run the country. Now, Greg Svensson, your thoughts on all of that?
Yeah, it was an incredible press conference, Nana. It reminded me of the morning after the bombing or the termination of the Iran nuclear program. And so, you know, the president means business, as Marco Rubio said. You know, don't take him seriously. You know, he gave Maduro every option, every chance to do this peacefully, just like he gave the mullahs in Iran. And it just proves again that he's not afraid to use military strength if it's done in a tactical way.
Yeah, but he also spoke of the people behind him that would also be running the country. But something that Charlie pointed out, and something that I did hear and thought, hold on a minute, he also talked about Colombia.
Yeah, look, I think the president mentioned a few times that he wants, you know, our neighbors to be reliable and peaceful and secure. And I think that, you know, this is something that he's taken quite seriously. It's the Monroe Doctrine, you know, part 2. It's in many ways reminds me of Teddy Roosevelt, who also had that Monroe Doctrine attitude in his handling of this hemisphere. And so I think that the president has been very candid about this. There were really no major surprises in the press conference, or I guess the only major surprise was the timing of this execution.
Now, another thing he said, and I'm wondering whether, you know, what the Venezuelan people will feel that now Donald Trump has openly admitted that he's going to pretty much run the country with the people behind him. He's going to fix up the oil, because he talked about oil reserves being taken away from the American companies over the last few years or so. But he did say, we will make the people of Venezuela rich, independent and safe. Maduro was kingpin of an illicit drug network. And then he talked about Carter las Solas, I think he spoke to, and he said he was responsible for hundreds of thousands of deaths. In your view, do you think the Venezuelan people will be comfortable with Donald Trump at the helm?
Absolutely. I think they'll be celebrating if they aren't already. You know, look, the Venezuela was the richest country in Latin America prior to the communists taking over. And so, you know, this is an opportunity for them. The only people getting rich in Venezuela were the drug lords and Maduro and his inner circle, because they were narco terrorists. And so it's really sad that they have the largest oil reserves in the world, and yet now they've become the poorest, or one of the poorest countries in South America, when they used to be the richest. So yeah, this is a great opportunity for the people of Venezuela.
And there have been people touting international law, you know, the usual suspects. Is Donald Trump accountable to anybody? Does he need to be fearful of international law in any way, shape or form?
No, I mean, look, the president, and I think generally speaking, the United States doesn't really acknowledge these, these multilateral institutions or any kind of international law. He's done a great good for the world. He's done an especially great good for the Venezuelan people. So the people with Trump derangement syndrome, I know there's, sometimes guests on your program that, kind of stalk us on Twitter, and how they can make an argument against this action is just unbelievable. It shows you that no matter what this, President Trump does, if you have TDS, you are going to complain about it. But the president has used American power for the greater good, and he's done it before, and he'll do it again.
Greg Svensson, some people might say he's using it for oil. There's a lot of it there. Venezuela's number one, but hey, who can blame him? Greg Svensson, thank you very much. He's the chair for the Republicans Overseas UK. Right now, though, we've got somebody who possibly suffers from TDS. Andrew, what do you think about this? This is my panel, and also Aman Bogle. Andy Williams.
Well, I don't think. I think people like Greg are the opposite. They would never, ever criticise Donald Trump in a million years. Doesn't matter what he does. Doesn't matter if he does something that goes completely against everything he said he'd do for years. But I thought that was it was a fascinating press conference. It certainly wasn't boring. That's one thing you can't accuse Trump of being. And my main takeaway is he said the quiet part out loud. He said completely transparently, this is about two things. It's about power. He said it's about reasserting American power in our home region. It's about spheres of influence, and it's about oil. And he said, I wrote down on four different occasions, he said, we're going to go in, our oil companies are going to go and pump a load more oil, and we're going to take the money. Thanks very much. But this is about plundering another country's natural resources, and he said it.
Hold on a second. No, you are aware that when this Maduro came into power, then they literally kicked out the American oil companies who invested heavily in Venezuela.
For a man who loves international law, let me refer to 2014 when the International Court of Arbitration awarded the Americans ExxonMobil billions to be paid from the communists that were Maduro and company.
Very aware of that.
So what's wrong? And don't forget, Maduro was offering just 24 hours beforehand for Trump to bring in the American oil giants and come back and take and develop what is correctly for the Venezuelan people. But look, I'll just say this, Nana. I think forgive my incorrect English for this. I think Trump just took out the trash. That's what people in America, people in Venezuela will be celebrating, having a safer nation at home in America, and a safer, more secure neighborhood around them.
Do you wish that Keir Starmer would be a bit more decisive? I mean, Donald Trump talked about how other people are just talking, he just gets on with it, and that is a fact. Even if you don't agree with him, he does it, doesn't he?
Look, Keir Starmer is an internationalist lawyer. He is not of the same caliber as President Trump. Right, the man is a political pygmy compared in front of...
He would probably... That's a little bit unfair. I mean, Keir Starmer's not here to defend himself, so calling him that is a bit out. Come on, Aman, don't sink to low levels of name-calling. You can do better than that.
I can't. I'll say... I'll go for name-calling. Donald Trump's an appalling individual.
You've never met him.
It doesn't matter that I've never met him.
That?
He's an embarrassment, I think, and I think history will judge him as that. I think it's relevant that he did that press conference at Mar-a-Lago, not at the White House, completely breaking with norms of the presidents of the United States.
And last 10 seconds to you, Aman.
Look, I think we'll see the results of what type of leader the British people want, and I think come May, they'll want more of a Trump than a Starmer.
All right, well, we'll see. Listen, thank you so much for your company this afternoon. Oh, God, it's been mind-blowing, hasn't it? Well, thank you to Aman and also to Andy. Thank you to you for your company. I'm back tomorrow, same time, same place. Up next, it's the Saturday 5.
Thank you, Nana. Well, everybody, welcome to the Saturday 5. And this is going to be a show like you have never seen. We are going to spend the majority of the show reacting to that incredible scene that we've just seen. The USA is going to add Venezuela to its empire, and they are going to run it. We are going to dissect it, we are going to think about it, and we're going to see you very soon. So enjoy the weather first, but don't go anywhere.
Warm and cosy, with a chance of zero visibility. Boxed Boilers sponsors the weather on GB News.
Hello there, welcome to your latest GB News weather forecast. It remains very cold through the rest of the weekend and into the beginning of next week as well. Snow showers for some of us, icy stretches for most of us, and some winter sunshine as well. Cold northerly airflow, air coming all the way down from the Arctic, bringing a bitter feel to things for the rest of Saturday and into Sunday as well. Clearing skies this evening, temperatures widely falling below freezing. The blues on the map show that frost and ice developing very quickly, and as we head overnight, further wintry showers, so sleet and snow showers feeding in from the north, largely around northern, western and eastern parts of the country. Central areas staying dry, but temperatures widely below freezing, -2 to -5 in the countryside, perhaps even down to -10 in the glens of Scotland. And those snow showers continue to feed in on quite a strong northerly wind, so they will move through quickly, but they will be heavy. Further accumulations possible. Met Office snow and ice warnings remain out right through the rest of the weekend. Wintry showers across Northern Ireland as well Sunday morning. Plenty of sunshine across central and eastern parts of England, but Wales down into the West Country, icy stretches and further sleet and snow showers in places. Very little changes through the day on Sunday. We remain cold with that northerly breeze. Plenty of winter sunshine, particularly across central and eastern parts of England, but Scotland, Northern Ireland, western parts of England and Wales will see further sleet and snow showers. The snow continuing to accumulate. Icy stretches in places, and temperatures once again not rising much above freezing. For many of us, maybe 5 or 6 degrees across the far southwest by the afternoon. Into Sunday evening, further bands of sleet and snow pushing